purple's not looking so good there. Let me adjust that upwards, cover that up. So welcome to the channel. Just a little time to discuss pretty much anything anybody wants to talk about. So join in the conversation when you come on there. And I'll bring folks up to speed with the current situation with the Wuhan coronavirus around the planet, here in the United States and across Africa. So let's get started right here as we tune in for Stray Voltage on this Monday evening, May 11th, 2020. All right, well, let's take a look at the current statistics from around the world, information on what's happening with the confirmed cases of the Wuhan coronavirus. At this hour on the 11th of May, 2020, we have 4,223,612 confirmed cases of the Wuhan coronavirus globally, with 285,069 cases, fatalities attributed to the Wuhan coronavirus. Here in the United States, 1,317,991 confirmed cases of coronavirus, Wuhan coronavirus, with 80,918 fatalities attributed to it. In the state of Pennsylvania, where I reside, 52,915 confirmed cases of COVID-19, with 3,416 fatalities attributed to it. In York County, 767 confirmed cases with 13 fatalities. This is after over 9 weeks of lockdown, 13 fatalities with less than 800 confirmed cases here in York County. Some good news for York County, yet we remain under lockdown through the balance of May, and the story is it will probably happen into June. Switching to Africa, so two folks in Africa, South Africa, Goeienacht, Botswana, good evening, Dumelang, the day is over. But it's about 10:30 there in Southern Africa and West Africa at different time zones. We've got 9:30 and 8:30, depending whether you find yourself in Abuja or Monrovia. And back here in the States, on the East Coast, it is 4:30 in the afternoon on a Monday evening in the midst of the lockdown. So South Africa's totals now surpass 10,000 confirmed cases of the virus, with 10,652, 206 confirmed fatalities from COVID-19. South Africa has the highest tally across the continent still. Egypt comes in second with 9,746 cases, 533 cases. And what appears to be a slow roll of cases increasing, one has to wonder if this is simply a function of the lack of testing, insufficient testing across the continent, or just the nature of the virus, how it finds its way through communities. It is a curious situation. A couple of months after we started seeing lockdowns across Africa. Algeria is no longer in third place. Morocco is ahead of them now with 6,226 confirmed cases, 188 fatalities. Algeria then comes at 5,891 with 507 fatalities. Rather high number given half the cases of Egypt. It has nearly as many fatalities. Now that's the situation in North Africa and the Maghreb across the Sahara. And you see that that's where the bulk of the cases outside of South Africa tend to be in the continent at the moment. But looking to Southern Africa, we see Zambia with just 267 confirmed cases, 7 fatalities. Zimbabwe still down at 36 confirmed cases with 4 fatalities. Eswatini, 175 with 2 fatalities. Botswana, 24 cases with just the 1 fatality, and that was a case of someone who already died, and they tested after the fact and discovered that she had actually had the virus. They were unaware she had the virus when she was still living. It was at the outset of the outbreak in Botswana. In Namibia, it's just 16 cases, and thus far, no fatalities attributed to COVID-19. One has to wonder if the lockdown measures are the reason, or it's a combination of the lockdown measures and the low population density of Namibia, which may be contributing to the fact that so few people have contracted the virus in Namibia. Malawi has 56 confirmed cases with 3 fatalities. Mozambique, 103 confirmed cases, 0 fatalities, which is interesting. Angola, just 45 cases with 2 fatalities. And Lesotho remains on the list of rare locations around the planet with no confirmed cases of the Wuhan coronavirus, COVID-19. That's highly suspicious, but no reported cases, hence 0 fatalities attributed to it. So South Africa, with nearly 11,000 confirmed cases, leads the region. But if we look at 8 other countries in the region, that's Zambia, Zimbabwe, Eswatini, Botswana, Namibia, Malawi, Mozambique, Angola, and Lesotho, we have a combined total, grand total of just 722 confirmed cases. Yet these countries, by and large, remain on lockdown. That said, Botswana has been easing its lockdown conditions this week, and things are beginning to change and should lift most of the measures, apparently by the 28th of, or 22nd or 28th of May. We shall see if that actually comes to fruition. But that's the current situation, folks, with the Wuhan coronavirus around the planet, confirmed cases and fatalities attributed to it. Bear in mind that in many locales around the planet now, not simply here in New York or in the United States, we have local and provincial officials who are attributing deaths to COVID-19, oftentimes under pressure from government authorities to determine death be the proximate cause to be COVID-19, when in fact the person was never even tested for COVID-19. So the numbers are a little bit suspicious. But nonetheless, nearly 6 months into this pandemic, 285,000 deaths attributed to it. By contrast, annually, as those of you who follow my channel probably have heard me say, by contrast, annually, malaria kills 620,000 people on the globe. Hey, Just a Ghost, welcome aboard there. Annually, it kills 620,000 people die from malaria around the world, and sadly, the majority of those folks die in Africa. Suicides account for 800,000 fatalities each and every year. HIV/AIDS is the proximate cause of 900,000 fatalities each and every year. And tuberculosis kills 1.5 million people globally every single year. Hey, Jacques, welcome aboard. And so what we've got going on here is COVID-19, less than 300,000 fatalities spread out over 6 months now, the bulk being concentrated in February, March, of course. And these other ailments and afflictions or illnesses causing far more deaths over the course of a year in a normal year. Yet we haven't shut the world down for that. So you have to wonder what's going on. Well, for those who were able to tune in on Friday and those who've gone afterwards, quite a few people have gone after the fact and watched it. Thank you for tuning in to the free live concert from Giselle. If you listened, you may remember this song from the concert. I hope that some of you were able, if not all of you, were able to tune in on Friday. And if not, please go back and check the concert. It was very generous of Giselle to ask for me to host the concert here on my channel. We had a great crowd that was present for it. Die Taal is in ons bloed. Yeah, exactly. I get it. The language is. Just because maybe it's 5 grams, as those countries don't have. All right, so let me answer Ben's question, because Ben asked this question, Ben Duplessis. Your thoughts on Governor Andrew Cuomo handling the New York outbreak? Well, I'm not impressed. I will say that he's in a difficult situation. His state is ground zero, and New York City, of course, is just the epicenter of this crisis. If you look at the number of cases, it's well out of proportion to the percentage of population. And it has an awful lot to do with the fact that people are so densely packed, but also has a lot to do with the fact that the authorities in New York State, in their arrogance, dismissed federal guidelines and recommendations on how to deal with this as early as late January and into February, ignoring it simply because it's coming from Donald Trump. Am I out of focus, or is that just me? Do people see my picture out of focus on the screen? Maybe my camera's a little foggy. I don't know. Anyway, so yeah, I'm not impressed with Andrew Cuomo. I never was as governor. When I discovered from the previous lieutenant governor that in 2015, Cuomo decided to spend nearly $800 million building a solar panel factory, when anyone with any common sense knows that the Chinese will sell solar photovoltaic panels, at below cost and get away with it by violating World Trade Organization rules and swamp your market with below cost goods like they did to Germany. Germany hoping to foster a solar photovoltaic industry. Quickly found all the producers driven out of business by Chinese who were using unfair trade practices. So New York, thinking that it could build a factory for $800 million and make money off of that, was not a very good business decision in my mind. So the governor, the state, decided to spend money in that fashion, taxpayer money for that, which is not the role of the state. The role of the state is not to be running industrialization, to be running corporations. No, the role of the state is to provide for the common defense, the general welfare of the people who live in it. And so the state of New York should have been spending that money for things it's responsible for, which would include public health care, that would include law enforcement, it would also include things like governance that go beyond that, and that would include preparation for pandemics and disaster response. And amongst that, the governor had the opportunity to spend $579 million purchasing respirators, and he chose not to. So the problem I have with Andrew Cuomo is that when the crisis hits, he screams and screams and screams for help, and he gets the help from the federal government. Then he complains about it, says it's not there when it is there. So he's just playing politics. But I do empathize for the man. He's in a very difficult situation. By all accounts, I would expect that if the electorate were reasonable, we would not see him back in office. I don't know if he's even eligible to run for office again, if you can just stay in office forever in New York or not as governor, but by winning successive elections, I mean. So I'm not sure what will happen with Andrew Cuomo, but I'm not impressed with him. People around saying he's a candidate for president. But I think that's largely because the Democratic Party has a fossil who falls asleep when former presidential candidates endorse him on Facebook. Literally sits there and falls asleep and can't string two sentences together. And as we discover from the thousands of videos we've seen of his creepy hands crawling all over young girls, ladies, and women, now all sorts of claims are coming forward. Whether there's merit to them or not, I do not know. But I will say that watching the man touch little girls and women over the past decade plus when he was the vice president, now as a candidate, it's really creepy. Anyway, so because they have such a poor candidate in their midst towards the end of the Democratic nomination process, they're kind of stuck and they're looking for a savior. And some people are proposing Andrew Cuomo. He's certainly not the savior of New York, let alone the savior of America. So, Ben, that's kind of my thought on Cuomo and New York. And I think that the reason that the crisis is so bad in New York is in part a consequence of bad recommendations, bad policy decisions, and poor judgment on the part of officials in New York. The city council members, the mayor de Blasio, of course, among the worst offenders there. And they contributed to this crisis. But there are lots of people responsible for the crisis. But quite frankly, at this stage, I'm starting to become over COVID-19. I mean, seriously, you need to, this is I keep pointing out the number of fatalities. Now, yes, people say, well, it's only because we've had lockdown. Well, that's a counterfactual. We really can't prove that. We can look at other places like Sweden, which has about the same incidence, the same percentage of fatalities that we seem to be experiencing, letting people run around and protecting those who are most at risk. Not to mention the fact that because people are locked in their houses and not getting out, are we even developing any sort of herd immunity to this? I don't think that is happening. So anyway, so I'm not impressed with Governor Cuomo, but in the interest of full disclosure, I'm not a Democrat, I'm not a progressive, and it would have taken a lot for me to be impressed. I will say that early in the crisis, from New York's perspective, in his daily briefings, I watched them intensely. And early on, the first week or so, I was somewhat impressed with his calm demeanor, but his arrogance and his pomposity since then, along with a number of questionable decisions, has kind of left me wondering if he's the right guy, if he's in the right place. So let me see what I've missed here. Cuomo's a joke. Jacques says both of them. You're talking about Chris. Yeah, Chris, the guy who's trying to admonish people about behaving properly under COVID-19 lockdown restrictions. And this buffoon is out walking around, got caught on video, just like de Blasio, out exercising. Well, we're different. I'm the mayor. Excuse me? Are you royalty? We don't have royal families in this country. If you want that royal thing, go to Montenegro. They have royalty, but it doesn't have power. They're out of power. But go someplace where they actually have a king still, like Lesotho or Swaziland, Eswatini, or perhaps the United Kingdom, where they still have a sovereign. We don't have a sovereign. We are the sovereign. We are the governed, and the governing is with our consent. And that seems to be lost on a lot of elected officials, and I hope that they're punished severely at the ballot box, whether they're from Democratic, Republican Party in this country. But most especially in South Africa, the ANC deserves to be trounced and driven from the scene of governance. They should lose massively in the 2021 municipal elections. For those who saw the video of this young child, this colored child, it appeared to be a colored child, who was being snatched by public health authorities, I guess they were, South African Medical or Health Service, I guess it was, based on the uniforms, snatching this kid off the streets, trying to kidnap him in broad daylight. I guess somebody snitched and said the kid was out playing around. And the father comes and they wind up arresting the father, exposing both of these folks potentially to COVID-19. What is happening with public authorities thinking they have this sort of power and responsibility? It's just absolutely nuts. Unbelievable. What are my thoughts on the whole story around Lieutenant General Michael Flynn? Never really followed the story early on. Yeah, I'll get I'll get to General Flynn very quickly, but I want to make sure I don't miss some comments. A lot of comments are coming in. Hey, folks, thanks for joining my live stream, Stray Voltage. Glad to see you here. If you're a subscriber, no need to push the subscribe button, but if you're new to it, you find this remotely interesting, I ask that you push the subscribe button right down there, and then push the little bell icon to make sure you get notifications for whenever I do a live stream. Apparently it works for some folks. A few people have joined me today. So please feel free to smash that little button down there. Also, I ask that you give me a like. I don't have a window open to look at what's going on. I'm just looking on my laptop at my software, and I can see myself, but I don't see what's happening on the page other than the chat. So I'll get back to Michael Flynn here in a moment. Hospital barges were also redundant. Jacques, I assume you're talking about the Mercy and the other ship, the U.S. Navy ships. Is that what you're talking about? Yeah, they were wholly unnecessary. And the fact that they hadn't arrived in New York 5 minutes sooner than they were supposed to, President Trump came under vast criticism, but it's absolutely ridiculous. Those ships get under sail and put steam up pretty quickly, and it turns out they were unneeded. A lot of panicking going on in the face of this crisis. Not quite getting it sorted. Have you tried the focus man? No, I haven't tried to focus manually. It might be the light. Let me play with the light again. Let me try this cold. I'm on cold, so let me try warm. Yeah, I don't like that one. What about that? That's washing me out though. That's too bright for me. I can't sit here and concentrate. Let me try that one. We'll leave that up for a few minutes and see if maybe that's a little bit better for folks. I think it's the map in the background. It throws the camera off. I know that's frustrating. I like a good picture when I'm watching stuff. So Tesla, yeah, okay, we'll get back to Tesla in a minute. So here's the thing about Lieutenant General Michael Flynn. Lieutenant General Flynn was the director of the Defense Intelligence Agency, and famously, he contradicted President Obama, which I felt was insubordinate and inappropriate. Now he's an intelligence officer, 3-star. I was a colonel, so anyway, at the time we were both serving active duty, and I thought that was wildly inappropriate, and he made more than a few enemies as a consequence of that. The fact that there were people in the Obama administration who didn't like him is one of the reasons why he was so attractive to the Trump transition team to help bring him in as national security advisor. Maybe not a bad choice for it, but I wasn't entirely sold on the choice of General Flynn because I knew about his past with the Obama administration, and I thought that that might prove to be distracting. Little do we know that the FBI would attempt to set General Flynn up in a perjury trap by creating circumstances in which it appeared that he was misleading them when he in fact was telling something to the best of his knowledge. So then they threatened to destroy him, and then he threatened to go after his son, who was working for his consulting company, I believe. And when his son came into the picture, he capitulated and agreed to take a guilty plea on a lesser charge so they would leave him alone. But that wasn't enough for the FBI. They decided to pursue him even further and destroy his reputation, destroy his career. He lost his position rather quickly with the White House because Vice President Pence lost confidence in him, believing he had lied. Turns out that he didn't lie, and that he was set up in shameful misconduct by the FBI based on the documentation that's been released under Freedom of Information Act. The fact that we had to wait 2 years to see this information that was part of testimony is just disturbing. And it shows just how government authorities can get away with abusing private citizens. If they can do that here in America, ladies and gentlemen, imagine what they can do in other countries. Imagine what the ANC is doing in South Africa to people right now. In Zimbabwe, we see people arrested for disparaging the president by making a satirical comment about what Mnangagwa was doing, vice what Ramaphosa was doing. Neither one of them doing anything particularly good, but the point is that the satire was about South Africa providing emergency relief for businesses and for businesses actually. And so this landed a member of the government in prison as a consequence of that. So you have to wonder what states are up to here. All right, let me get back. I think I've addressed the General Flynn thing, hospital barges. Looks like the camera, okay. Elon Musk just tweeted, Tesla is restarting production against Alameda County rules. I'll be in live there. But whoa! So Elon Musk will soon be a charged criminal, assuming that California has the audacity, the cojones, the temerity to go arrest Elon Musk. Go ahead, California. Go ahead, Alameda County. Bite the hand that feeds you. Yet again. Here, I dare you. Go arrest Elon Musk. You think that's going to accomplish anything other than making the guy a hero of the free speech of the civil libertarian movement? You watch. Go ahead and arrest Elon Musk. We will see what happens. I don't think the billionaire will spend more than a few moments being processed and be out the door, and you'll get all the bad press that you deserve. Well, I don't encourage civil disobedience, but I understand where Elon Musk is coming from. And while I have issues with him smoking weed on a radio show, yeah, that's right. I don't really care for that. That's not a good example for kids. Anyway, while I have issues with that, I have a great deal of respect for the man and his great talent, his vision, his thought, and many of his ideas. And I don't begrudge him the billions of dollars that he's made from PayPal, from Tesla, and from SpaceX. Especially, I'm excited about his SpaceX. And you know what? I don't even mind his ego trip of putting his car in space and flying it to Mars. I mean, that's a bit ridiculous. But hey, the guy's got the money, he wants to do it. More power to him. The bigger issue here is we're trying to get to Mars. And so I really appreciate that. So Elon Musk, good on you. Let's see what happens with Alameda County. Oakland, Alameda County. We'll see what happens. Jason Goodman visited many hospitals in New York, and I'm yet to see a single hospital overflowing with COVID patients. Yeah, Jacques. There were apparently some in the city that were inundated early on, but it's a consequence of poor triage decisions. You know, people simply going to the hospital who felt bad. Turns out many of them had influenza, and they're overflowing the hospitals. Although that hasn't happened, as your point says, beyond that early stage. Just a Ghost says, lucky you're going back to work tomorrow. Well, congratulations, Just a Ghost. I think. You you going to be wearing a mask? Do you come in contact with people? That would be interesting. So I says, have you tried the ultra low latency before you go live to be closely in sync with the comments? Yeah, maybe that's what it is. I haven't done that. I'll have to go and check that setting because I'm entering YouTube through my Streamlabs OBS, and I'm not an expert with Streamlabs OBS. I've just been using it for a couple of months, and I am finding a few challenges. So, for instance, Ronaldo Hose suggested that I do a live commentary on the film, what is it, Tainted Heroes. I should watch that and offer my commentary. He thought that would be of interest to viewers, and having started watching it, I think, yeah, it probably would be. I can add some value, and I think people would find that interesting and entertaining and useful. But when I try to stream my browser through my Streamlabs, I get nothing. It doesn't work. So I'm doing something wrong. I'm going to have to learn a little bit, be a little bit smarter about that. So maybe my viewers can, my subscribers can help me out with that. Let's see. Thank you for that recommendation, Ice. Jacques says CBS was also exposed for filling the lines of testing facilities project. Yeah, they probably pay people to stand in line so it can make it look worse. Look, CBS has been caught time and again. We've got Dan Blather faking news about George Walker Bush, claiming that he got out of his Vietnam service and he didn't show up to drills, utterly disproven, all in effort to get even for the swift boating that was going on with John Kerry. Dan Blather and CBS, a shameful news organization that consistently reports fake news. Long before Trump ever called it fake news, they were lying to the public. So we have instances of them showing hospitals overflowing. The problem with the video footage they were showing is the people in the background, the signs were in Italian. Yeah, these were events in northern Italy, not in New York City. So, CBS, the fact that anybody watches them is beyond comprehension for me at this stage. Let's see what else. Kyle says, I had a share through WhatsApp today with what I'm sure is a snippet of the movie Pandemic. It was about the female scientist that was silenced and her life was destroyed because she put the truth before profit. I'm not sure which film you're talking about, Kyle. Jacques, Flynn should be allowed to prosecute as prosecutors. Well, what should happen with General Flynn is that the government has dropped the charges, and I think that his lawyer should file a civil lawsuit for misconduct. Now, some of those folks, their conduct is protected. Some of it's not, because their official role as government employees, some of it's protected. But I think that Sydney, I can't think of her last name, she should file a civil suit on behalf of General Flynn, and hopefully he will win tens of millions of dollars from misconduct and his destroyed reputation and the loss of his livelihood. I think his business has also gone under. He had to sell his home. This is shameful, shameful, shameful. And then when Trump is reelected in the fall, Donald Trump should hire him to be a cabinet member for an appropriate cabinet. I think that's what should happen with General Flynn. That would exonerate him, and that would give an opportunity to prove his mettle once again, rather than being disgraced by scuzzball, overzealous, criminally behaving actors in what is supposed to be the nation's premier law enforcement agency. Yes, that's right. They've been exposed. People have been talking about them for a couple of years, but now they've truly been exposed for what they did to him. Now, that's not the entire FBI, but the fact that this can happen at all to such a prominent U.S. citizen is disturbing in ways that we can only imagine. Let's see what else. Jacques says, I'm sure many Democrat heads were spinning after his exoneration. Absolutely. Well, of course, Jacques, they immediately spun it and said it's not an exoneration. You hear Adam Schiff out there, it's not an exoneration, it's not an exoneration. Yeah, you know what, Adam Schiff, go away. I can never move to the district where you're the representative. It's because I would be spending 90% of my time standing on the doorstep of your office trying to point out just how wrong you are on virtually every issue that's important to this nation. Ben says, did you ever have any interaction with your career with General Mattis? I passed basically with General Mattis, but I never worked for him. I honestly can say I didn't have any direct interaction. You remember, he's a Marine, so no, but I did have a lot of joint assignments. But he was in South Asia and Southwest Asia when I was in Africa most of the time, so I had very little interaction with him. Impressed by General Mattis, though. Absolutely impressed. He's a great leader. Jacques says, Comey, Schiff, Brennan, Clapper, Clinton should be investigated. Well, yeah, but nothing's coming to investigations. We don't need investigation of Hillary Clinton. She's committed felonies. I don't need an investigation. I've seen the data. I've seen the evidence of it. She interfered with the course of justice by failing to answer the subpoena and destroyed evidence by having the servers destroyed. Case in point. People say, well, she didn't do it. Well, yeah, she's probably not competent enough other than get a hammer and smash a computer on her own. but she directed people to do it. And beyond that, she took classified information from a secure server, put it on an unclassified server, and shared it with people through unclassified email, all of which were in violation of federal data protection laws. They're in violation of her agreement to abide by classification rulings and classification protection standards, all of which carry severe penalties. And she's never been penalized for that. And she can claim that I didn't do it. That's fine. But you had the information in email which you were using unclassified. In contravention of President Obama's directive, an executive order which required people to use, in your position, to use government email, not your personal email, to conduct business. Now, I use personal email as a government official, but I used it in lieu of when government information could not be used because the servers and the system wasn't working, and I never used classified information, and I never used anything that could be of concern from an operations security standpoint. Simply merely coordination with other actors inside and outside of government to attend meetings, to coordinate things. Now, Hillary Clinton used it to hide classified information, and we know this. It's been delivered. The information has been presented to the public. So, yeah, the investigations will amount to nothing. People are excited about Attorney General Barr and what he's going to do. I don't see it. We're still waiting for this report from the federal prosecutor in Connecticut. Where's that at? The first term of the Trump administration is nearly complete, and we have yet to see a single prosecution of these people who clearly have committed crimes or attempted to commit crimes. ICE says that's why Elon is definitely going to move to Texas. He's already said, yeah, he should move his operation to Texas. Piss on California. They don't deserve to have the business. Silicon Valley ought to get up and move too. Why should they put up with that nonsense? Unless they like it. Obviously, some of them do like it. They enjoy it quite a bit. So that's part of the problem. Let me do this. See if that's a little bit better. I ran my finger over the camera. Sorry, I didn't mean to scare you all. It wasn't the coming of the zombies. We're not in a zombie apocalypse now. So it would be very interesting for me to do a commentary on that. I'd definitely tune in. Oh, I assume, Kyle, you're talking about the commentary about the Tainted Heroes? Yeah, okay. I'll seriously consider that. Right now I'm in the process of putting together some notes to do a video which I'm going to call South Africa's Renaissance. I think perversely COVID-19 has opened a window of opportunity for South Africans to finally abandon identity politics and start rewarding or punishing political parties in power for failure or success. And I think COVID-19 is going to be the time in which we finally see that start to happen in a measurable fashion. Now, I thought that we had progress in 2016 with the municipal elections in South Africa. But in 2019, it all kind of went the other way, went sideways. Now, that has something to do with the fact that the DA fumbled the ball between the Patricia de Lille saga and then the Julius Malema and his racist efforts to cut the throat of whiteness in Nelson Mandela Bay, and the fractious nature of the coalitions for Shwana, for Joburg, and for Nelson Mandela Bay made it difficult for the DA to do much, although they make progress in each of those cities. And we can see the regression when the ANC is in charge of Johannesburg, now that Herman Mashaba has betrayed his own party and played the race game and left it. Now that we see Mashaba off on the sidelines, and the African National Congress, which had the plurality of seats in the council, was able to regain in a coalition the mayorship of Johannesburg. Now we see Johannesburg Metropolitan Police and the Red Ants out evicting people from informal settlements, not on private land, but on government-owned land in the southwest corner of Johannesburg. So why is the ANC government evicting people who are not allowed to move around during the lockdown, even leave their abodes, destroying their homes with the thuggish Red Ants relocation demolition team? Yeah, so this is ANC governance of Johannesburg, not DA governance. Not advocating for the DA, just making an obvious comparison between the two. So 2021, I'm making a video that will be talking about the potential for a South African Renaissance, which would be booting the people who have failed you out of office. Now, if you live in the Western Cape and you think the DA has failed you, vote them out of office. I don't think that's the case. But it's an opportunity for people in 2021 to make a decision not based on ethnic identity or history. Frankly, born-frees in South Africa, for the most part, could give a flying flip less about the narrative from their parents and grandparents about the struggle and all the things that they put up with. That's not the life that most of them have known. Most of them know a very completely different world than that, and they're living in a world that's shaped by the African National Congress now for 26 years. Anyone under the age of 26 is born-free and did not live during the apartheid era. And that is at least a quarter of the population at this stage, if not more, of South Africa's population. It's growing each and every day as we pass the years by. So I think 2021 presents an opportunity for a South African renaissance. We'll see. I'm not predicting it. A lot of things can happen between now and then. But when you see things like what happened in this video, where these public health officials, local municipal authorities are snatching a child off of a sidewalk to kidnap the child, take them away, the father intervenes and they arrest the father. How well do you think that's going to go down with voters? See, here's the thing, ladies and gentlemen. If you're a member of the African National Congress and you are beholden to Luthuli House, let me explain something to you. Starbucks break. Hang on. Let me explain something to you. When the National Party government had apartheid in place, with rare exceptions during the period from 1948 to 1994, the only people who could vote were white South Africans. There were some exceptions. Indians and coloreds were later brought in. It wasn't really much of a vote, but nonetheless, but let's just blankly say people who are non-white in South Africa during apartheid couldn't vote. So when the police went out and beat heads and locked people up or imprisoned them, or Steve Biko was disappeared off the streets, things like that, nothing could happen to the National Party at the ballot box as long as that information was kept from the white population that was voting. And that was relatively easy to do for the most part because the state controlled media and the state controlled the political scene in South Africa. So when most of the people who are eligible to vote can't vote, or not eligible, most people who should be able to vote are ineligible to vote, not able to vote, and they're abused, that's not going to affect your electoral outcome for the most part. But ladies and gentlemen, members of the African National Congress, those of you who are in government, let me point something out to you. The images of kilometers-long queues of black South Africans and colored South Africans lining up for food parcels, the images of government taking relief supplies for poor white Afrikaner families living in squatter camps in Gauteng province, taken by the government because only they can distribute food aid. The images of public health officials snatching children off the streets, colored children off the streets, and then arresting the parents for intervening to keep their child from being snatched from them. These are not going to go over well. And the people you're doing this to have the vote. They have the suffrage. They have the ability to punish you at the polls. The ANC has been given a free pass for a long time. At this point, far longer than it deserves. After 26 years, the excuses of apartheid, the excuses of the situation they inherited, begin to ring hollow. Yes, there's a legacy of that. The historical situation is true. The historical disadvantages are true. But you've had 26 years to right them. And despite a good start from 1994 till about 2004, 2005, the ANC has regressed in a fashion and a pace that is astounding since that time frame. You need to fix things. Otherwise, you're going to be bounced on your ear. Expect to see that. I would not be shocked to see the Democratic Alliance get its act together and re-win Cape Town, win Nelson Mandela Bay outright with over 50% of the vote, win Johannesburg outright with over 50% of the vote, and win Pretoria outright with over 50% of the vote, and increase their share of the vote in Bloemfontein and in Durban significantly. I don't think they'll win either of those from the ANC, just too far behind. But in those other municipalities, expect to see the DA win them outright. If the DA can leverage its governance with majorities, not rely on coalitions, and deliver good governance from 2021 until the next national elections in 2024, then the whole game will change. The African National Congress will be forced to govern properly, or it will find itself on the outside as the official opposition. Hopeful? Perhaps. We'll see. My point is that the people that they're abusing have the right to vote, and they seem to be missing that point. They seem to be missing the point that people you abuse may vote against you. Anyway, so let's see. Barr is a career politician. Jacques, yeah, that's true, but Barr has been a very effective Attorney General. He did it previously, was very effective in the first administration, or first time with the first Bush administration. Yeah, Sidney Powell, Jacques. That's General Flynn's attorney. She's very, very impressive. I've been listening to her for about 18 months now. Very impressive. Variable vision, that's why he's selling everything, includes property. Oh, you're talking about Elon Musk. Silicon Valley is worse than Hollywood these days. Yeah, it's pretty bad. I used to travel through Silicon Valley quite a bit when I was out there in Monterey and checking things out. Big tech saturated with woke political zealots. Indeed it is. Indeed it is. Yep, videos being taken down of actual physicians who are dealing with COVID-19 on YouTube being removed because YouTube said that the information was fake from a actual physician, two physicians. So anyway, whatever. Very Listen says, you should stay off South African Twitter tonight. It will make your blood boil. Oh, well, I'm here. I'm not a big Twitter fan. I find that it's a place where people just go off on each other, and cogent conversation, discourse is not something that happens very often on Twitter. It is a good source to find breaking things. Events happen, as it goes down. Kind of like it's like everybody in the world is suddenly an OJ journalist. When OJ Simpson, when the car chase took place, if everybody had Twitter back then, could you imagine what would be happening? Instagram, Twitter. People videos, it's fantastic for that, for on the street breaking news. But once people start talking and offering their opinions, an awful lot of it's just cock. So yeah, I'm not on South African Twitter tonight. So you'll have to tell me, Variable Vision, what's going on. Jacques says, we did not sign up to enter an inverted apartheid. Yeah, well, listen, here's the irony, folks. Now, I don't mean to offend South Africans who had anything to do with the National Party, particularly because many of you, if you were around at that time, it was probably late in the National Party's history. But in many ways, the ANC is simply the National Party in a new uniform. That's all it is. Let me explain. So then now some of this is because the National Party had little choice, but nonetheless, they grew comfortable with it. So the ANC treasures loyalty over all else. The National Party treasured loyalty over all else and would punish you if you were disloyal. The ANC is very comfortable with the security state. So is the National Party. And in fact, in the last decade plus of National Party rule, the last 15 or 20 years, essentially the security state, the police, the intelligence services, the SADF, essentially ran the country. The parliament was really basically a rubber stamp and not actually running the country in many respects. They did what the security services asked or told them to do. So in this situation, now we have this National Coronavirus Command Council, this body that is not defined, is not authorized under existing statutes, but it's created anyway by the government. It is making decisions with the weight of law, which it has no authority to do. Only Parliament can create laws, not this council, yet it's acting as if it has this authority. So here's the other thing. The National Party had plenty of parastatals. Sasol, that's a parastatal. Plenty of others. Eskom, parastatal, these are things that existed under the National Party, and the National Party ran them. Now, some of these, like Denel, were a response, as was Sasol, to sanctions and efforts by external actors to influence events in South Africa. So as a way to overcome this, they had state-owned entities. Well, the ANC is perfectly comfortable with the state-owned entities. So there are many parallels. The National Party was also a party that was particularly keen on patronage, especially for the Afrikaans-speaking community, white Afrikaners. A lot of white Afrikaners could pretty much be assured of having a government job for life as long as they adhered to the National Party's line. Well, it's no different in the ANC. The ANC will give you a job if you are there lacking and do what they tell you to do, and you take your direction not from the people that you represent as a member of Parliament for the Western Cape, as an ANC member, or KwaZulu-Natal, or Mpumalanga, or Northwest, but rather if you take your direction from Luthuli House, which will tell you how to vote, what to say, when to say it, and where to say it. And as long as you're a good little cadre, you'll find yourself elevated at some point, moving up the chain. Not very different than the National Party. So yeah, inverted apartheid? No, you've simply got apartheid reincarnated is what you have today. And the problem for South Africa is the world isn't paying attention. The world's attention is elsewhere, even before COVID-19. The world sees South Africa through 1994, the Rainbow Nation, the miracle. We didn't have this massive bloodletting. There was massive violence in KZN and some aborted attempts by the extreme right in Bophuthatswana that kind of ended rather quickly. The Afrikaner Weerstand, AWB. But for the most part, we didn't see the bloodshed in South Africa that people anticipated. Wholesale bloodletting. So we simply have apartheid recreated by a different set of actors. And those set of actors aren't entirely black. The ANC is full of white South Africans, white communists, white socialists, and Indians as well as colored members, less so colored members. But the party is not simply a black party, which is a lot of people presume. The ANC has plenty of folks who are colored and white in its party, and oftentimes you found them in positions of authority. Trevor Manuel is the finance minister, Barbara Hogan, same sort of role, and others. And you saw, who was the communist, used to run the intelligence services there. I'm drawing a blank right now. But anyway, let's get back to here. So, do you feel the ANC will allow free and fair elections? Yes, I do, Variable Vision. If you watch my video from the Great Decisions lecture series, there's a link on my channel, or you can just do a Google search, Great Decisions, South Africa's Fragile Democracy, Wyatt. and you should be able to find it. It's available on YouTube. It was from the U.S. Army War College. It was part of a lecture series that takes place by universities around the U.S. and I think also in the U.K. And they pick these topics each year, and I was asked to speak about South Africa's fragile democracy. 2 years ago, I was much kinder to the ANC when I did this in April of 2018. Was it April 2018? It was February 2018. But 2 years ago, I gave this presentation. It's about an hour and 45 minutes. And I was much kinder to the ANC. I hadn't quite grown as angry or frustrated with their betrayal of the liberation struggle as I am today. So the one thing I did say in that, and I still profess to this day, is that I think that one of the great strengths of South Africa is the strength of its institutions. Now, I'm becoming a little more concerned about the institutions. This was because the institutions, I'm not talking about the Constitutional Court. I'm not talking about Parliament. No, those are not the institutions I'm talking about. Those matter. But I'm talking about civil society, and I'm talking about the business sector. I'm talking about things like the Institute for Race Relations. I'm talking about the independent media. And the thing I'm growing more concerned about these days is the independent media. The Mail and Guardian, in my view, at one time was a pretty good publication which did a lot of groundbreaking news and investigative journalism. These days, I find a mixed bag of leftist propaganda nonsense published in the Mail and Guardian alongside reasonable, cogent analysis. So I find it very frustrating with the Mail and Guardian, for example. News 24 is all over the place. I know a lot of people right of center take issue with them. Anyway, so the media is something I'm concerned about in South Africa. So I'm encouraged by the growth of alternative media. For instance, people who present news like Roman Kabnak and those express their views about politics and issues in South Africa like Ronaldo Hoos or even germ warfare. But it's good to see that sort of alternative media out there and a following for it. I hope that I garner an audience, and particularly on the South Africa issue. But for those folks who are tuning in, I don't just cover South Africa. We're talking a lot about that right now, in part because a lot of people viewing the stream right now are actually from South Africa, so only fair. But if you'll follow my channel, you'll see that I talk about issues all over the continent, and I cover issues on the whole spectrum of events, whether it's health, defense, security, politics, economics, take your pick, farming, agriculture. I have a rather strange life experience. I've been a dairy farmer, so I have farming experience. I've been a counterintelligence agent. I've been an analyst, intelligence analyst. I've been a attaché, a security cooperation officer. I've run health programs, built schools and clinics. Not boasting, I'm just explaining that this is one reason why in my consulting services that I offer on the side, I offer all these different aspects and talk about this, trade, all sorts of things. Even genealogy. I'm a genealogist, family historian. Got over 25,000 people in my family history tree. You can trace my family history back to the year 563 on the island of Öland off the coast from Kalmar in Sweden, in a little town called Boda in the very north. The year 563. Yeah, I know. But yeah, there's truth to it. And anyway, so I have 25,000 people. My first immigrant ancestor came to the United States in 1621. I think it was 1621. Sir Francis Wyatt, the first royal governor of the Jamestown colony of Virginia, because the previous governors had been company employees, but he was the king's representative for the first time because the king had had enough of the Jamestown company screwing things up. And so he sent a royal governor, and the first one was Sir Francis Wyatt, my 17th great uncle. His brother, the Reverend Holt Wyatt, was the progenitor of most of the Wyatts in North America today, of which there are about 90,000 in the U.S. and Canada. About 75,000 of them are white, whatever white is, and the balance being those who are black or African, if you want to say that. So, yeah, there you have it, 90,000. Interesting. And that was my first immigrant ancestor. My last immigrant ancestor was a guy by the name of Heinrich Wöhler, who came from Germany in 1849. And there you have it. So I've been here a long time. But yeah, genealogy is something I do. It's something I followed for a long time. I was inspired by Alex Haley's Roots when I was a child, watching Roots on television, and then reading his book later on. And then ironically, I served in Bad Kreuznach, which is where his son served as an army officer in Bad Kreuznach, Germany. So interesting. People are still talking about Alex Haley, who had departed there about 5 years, 3 to 5 years before my arrival in Bad Kreuznach, Germany back in the early 1980s. So yeah, Alex Haley. Interesting character, interesting American. Did a real great, a true service to America, I think, in writing his book and doing his research about his family history. Really opened the question of slavery and got people to talk a lot more about genealogy. So I follow that. Let's see. Yeah, so I think I got off the topic, didn't answer the question, variable division. Yes, I think the ANC, because of the strength of the institutions, because of the oversight of what's happening with the Electoral Commission, Independent Electoral Commission, and also with the press, is the elections will be fair and free and fair. And that is the strength of South Africa. I think even if the ANC is going to lose, it will be free and fair. Now, we'll see what happens, but I predict that to be the case. The question is, will the elections in 2021 actually take place? And is there a constitutional precedent for the ANC delaying the elections? I've been looking through the Constitution. I'm not a constitutional scholar, but it is written in English, so I'm trying to sort this out. But the question is, will the elections take place, and how will they be taking place? Here in the United States, we have people trying to allow the mailing of absentee ballots to people to vote, and that being the means for us voting. That is a whole can of worms, subject to all sorts of fraud, and I would hope that someone wouldn't try that in South Africa. As hard as people fought for the right to vote, to have your vote diminished and weakened by fraud is very disturbing. So I hope that the elections take place in 2021. But if they do, it could be a new renaissance for South Africa. We shall see. Ben says, an intelligence question. Any insights into the supposed nuclear test by South Africa on the 22nd of September 1979 near Prince Edward Island in the Indian Ocean, also known as the Valence? Oh, that's the Valence. Okay, yeah, that's right. Well, yes. The South African government did test a nuclear weapon in the Indian Ocean in 1979, and they did have the capacity to deliver nuclear weapons. They're the only country in the world that has voluntarily dismantled its nuclear weapons program and all its nuclear weapons. That's true. Now, that happened under the ANC, but yeah, that did happen. They did test a weapon, which surprised a lot of intelligence analysts. Obviously, I wasn't in intelligence then. In September '79, I was in high school, but yes, after the fact, come to know about that. Jason Renica, hi Chris, nice springback jersey. Yeah, how many rugby jerseys do I have? Well, Jason, that's a good question. Proper rugby jerseys, I would guess or estimate that I probably have about 45, maybe 50 of them. Primarily Springbok, Eagles jerseys, but also I have things like Ulster and Wales, Ireland. I have no All Blacks jerseys. I have no All Blacks rugby jerseys, and I don't think I ever will have them. Anyway, but yeah, I have lots of jerseys. I also have Sevens jerseys, plenty of Sevens jerseys, including the coveted Madiba birthday celebration Springbok 7 jersey. I have one of those, and I wore that. I think that when I had that first conversation with Ronaldo Hose on his program. Yeah, I have a lot of rugby jerseys. I buy more. I also have Major League Rugby jerseys for the New York Rugby United, New York, Rooney, and also for the Utah team, the Utah Warriors. I have their initial jersey, which didn't have any of the annoying adverts on it because they hadn't gotten any sponsors at that point, so I got one without it. Well, by the way, funny story. When I ordered that jersey, I hadn't got it. I was wondering where it was at. The shipment hadn't taken place, so I actually called them to ask what was going on with the Utah Warriors. This is their first season before they ever played their first game. There were only a handful of teams in the first season, and I wanted a team. None of them were on the East Coast that I could affiliate with. So I looked, and I like Utah, and I like the style of the jersey, and I said, I'll be a Utah fan. So I bought the jersey, and it hadn't come. So I called, and the young guy at the shop said, well, let me check and see what's going on with the orders here, because it should be arriving. You should have had already. So he's looking around. He said, here, let me put Paul on. He's one of the guys who plays on the team. So the guy comes on the phone and goes, hey, how you doing? I'm Paul Lasike. So what's going on? So you're a Utah fan. Okay, for those who don't know, Paul Lasike is a member of the Eagles. One of the really talented members of the Eagles, who's also gone off. He's played in the English Premiership as well. He was on our Rugby World Cup team in Japan in 2019. A heck of a player. Originally from New Zealand, but he's LDS or Mormon and went to Brigham Young University in Utah, hence the Utah affiliation and the fact that he plays for the U.S. team, even though he was born in New Zealand. So Paul Lasike and I had a conversation on the telephone while they were trying to sort out where my jersey was. So I have those jerseys as well. And then I have lots of Sevens jerseys, as I said. I also have lots of other things. This is a really cool one. This one here, I think I got this in Cape Town, if I'm not mistaken. Or maybe, there's no sneakers left anywhere, the sneaker stores. There used to be one in Menlyn, and then there was one at the airport in OR Tambo, and there was one in Cape Town too, I think. But I can never find sneakers anymore. So I think I got this in Cape Town. I'm trying to remember when. But it's really cool because it's got this awesome pocket right here, which is pretty large. You can actually slide. I have this huge Galaxy S9 Plus. The thing is like the size of a freaking house. You can slide that right. That fits right in there. So when I go for a walk, I can zip that sucker up, and all it's doing is transmitting radiation to my heart and probably upsetting the rhythm of my heart. So I really like this. This is pretty cool. But it's a sweatshirt, so I don't get to wear it very often. Of course, it's got a hoodie on here, and I guess now with the COVID-19 restrictions, we all have to wear something over our face. So would this work? Does this work for COVID-19? There you go. I guess my nose isn't covered, so that's not good enough. But anyway, yeah, it's a pretty cool sweatshirt. I really enjoy it. It's nice, got good quality, nice pockets down here. And it was expensive in Rand, but the Rand was already collapsing when I bought this a few years ago. I think it's in 2017, if I'm not mistaken. And the Rand was already in trouble then, so it was actually inexpensive for me. Today, it'd be a song. So, like, I have Western Province and Stormer jerseys, which I buy from their shop online, and several of them have my name put on the back, personalized, because the personalization cost me almost nothing, because it's like 50 Rand, which is nothing. The most expensive part of the jerseys now, with the Rand collapsing, is the shipping. So it costs me more to DHL than it does for the actual jersey. So, works for me. Not so good for South Africa. But anyway, for me to promote South African rugby, it works out pretty well. Let's see. Hey, Nicholas, welcome. So, Nicholas, you went and watched my video premiere, which you missed earlier, on the informal economy in Botswana. I hope you got a chance to see that. I noticed a lot of people watched it after it aired, so that's great. For those who don't know, I'm still learning my way around some of the tools and techniques that YouTube offers for its content providers, and one of those is the concept of Premiere. And so I thought Premiere just meant, well, it's like a television show, you air it at a certain hour. That's true. What I didn't realize is that unless I turn it off, the chat window comes open. So I premiered a couple of my videos a few weeks ago. I'm like, okay, this is cool. And then I went in to check a video that I was premiering. It was a longer one, about 20 minutes, and I just wanted to see if it was playing properly. So I went to my main PC to see if it was streaming. And I did, and there was like 7 of my subscribers on there. Hey, Chris, how you doing? How you doing? I'm like, what is this? Who are these folks? I mean, I know who they are, but what are they doing here? It turns out that when you premiere a video, if you leave the chat window open, people can chat. So what I'm doing now is whenever I premiere a video, I make sure that, now you should understand that video premiering is pre-recorded. It's playing just like if you turn on the television show at 8 o'clock and you're watching Carte Blanche or you're watching Friends, it's pre-recorded. So the first time I did that premiere and I came in the chat window, somebody's like, how come Chris is how can he be doing the video and responding in chat at the same time? It's because that is not a live stream. It's streaming live on a pre-recorded video. So whenever when I premiere now, folks, I tune in and I'm there to answer questions and say hello to folks. It's my way of paying it back or paying it forward, thanking you guys for subscribing to the channel and my appreciation that you enjoy the content and you're actually here. So I figure if you can show up for my premiere, I can show up for my premiere. So that's kind of my approach, and that'll be my standard going forward. Will I always be able to adhere to that? I don't know. We shall see. If COVID-19 ends and I get consulting gigs again, I can get some work, then I might be a little busier. But my plan will be to always premiere them at an hour that's reasonable, that people can see it either in the evening or daytime in South Africa and the U.S., vice versa. And of course, when I say South Africa and U.S., I'm talking about all of Africa and Europe for South Africa, because the time zones are similar, and all of the U.S. when I talk about here the East Coast. So yeah, so that was a lesson learned for me, and so now I'm on there. But Nicholas, I hope that you are able to see that video. I'm sure you probably have by now. Anyway, so no offense taken, I'm not particularly fond of the National Party. Yeah, that's fine, Variable. I just, some people hold things particularly dear, and there were good aspects of the National Party. I don't want to denigrate the whole thing, but I just wanted to put out there that if you objectively look at the National Party and the way that it governed, and you objectively look at the way the ANC governs, there are many parallels that are very similar. So that's what I was getting at. Yeah, I appreciate no offense taken. I didn't think people would, just trying to be considerate. Jacques says, videos of police brutality in South Africa flooding fake book at the, fake book. Well, I hope the videos aren't fake. So Ben says he's been asking about this previously. He doesn't. That's the videos, I think. Nicholas, if they allow many poor to stand in 4-kilometer lines to collect food packages, they can let us. Yeah, exactly. It seems, ISIS seems SA might be under level 4 till the end of July. Level 3 to October. Yeah, I don't know what's going on there. I hope that isn't the case. Are you 100% sure you don't even have a small Sonny Bill? Okay, listen, variable vision. Okay, here's the thing. I detest the All Blacks. I don't think I have any subscribers in New Zealand, so maybe I won't lose any subscribers or viewers. I don't detest New Zealand. I love New Zealand. Amazing place, beautiful topography, fantastic people, fascinating cultures there. It's wonderful. I always wanted to go, and I finally got there in 2011 for the Rugby World Cup. No regrets. But I do not like the All Blacks at all. Now, I respect them. They're a tremendous team, tremendous history, rugby history, amazing. But also their conduct is a bit arrogant. The haka gets a bit old for me at times, although it's a nice part of the rugby game. Yeah, I actually really like Sonny Bill Williams. Now, Sonny Bill Williams is a strange character. You either love him or you hate him. I really like Sonny Bill Williams. I love the energy and the attitude he brings to rugby, and the fact that he also does other stuff like boxing and God knows what else. And he also plays rugby league, and that's where he signed his contract. He was going to make a bunch of money playing rugby league, I think for Toronto this year, but I think it was Toronto. But now that's all been upset. The apple cart's been upset. I'm not a huge fan of rugby league, just because I haven't watched it that much. More rugby union, but I'm a big Sonny Bill Williams fan, and I think that the All Blacks kind of mistreated him and didn't treat him particularly well in the way they looked at him and the way they used him in the 2019 World Cup cycle. But Sonny Bill, yeah, awesome guy. Really, really like him as an athlete. Variable Vision, tourism sector recovery webinar, and it's on SA. Look at 28 minutes. Okay. Germ Warfare's Twitter account. Yeah, I don't follow Germ's Twitter account. Paulie says, seen that on Twitter this evening, civil unrest is going to override this no more than a couple more weeks, my money says. You might be right. You might be right. Chris, I remember Brigham Young, he said, I don't care how you bring him. Sean, you're there. You hadn't commented, and you come in with that cheeky comment. Sean says, I remember Brigham Young. He said, I don't care how you bring him, as long as you bring him young. I'm not so sure about that. I don't ban members on my stream, but someone else might ban you. No, I'm just kidding, Sean. That's actually pretty funny. Cheeky. Yeah, Brigham Young. Well, yeah. That was about Paul Lasike being Mormon or LDS, Latter-day Saint, and Utah and Brigham Young University, I believe. All right, back to the comments. Nicholas says, I missed the notification. Not sure if it's my phone, but I did get through email. Yeah, it's the notifications are hit and miss, Nicholas. I don't even get them sometimes, like Ronaldo goes on or something else, but it's just weird. Now I seem to be getting the last week or two, I've been getting them where I get 30-minute notification, then I get, it's going live at this point, which is kind of handy for the stuff I really want to watch, which is the World Rugby videos, and then also Ronaldo stuff. I'm kind of getting partial to Roman's program now too, especially his morning shot. It's pretty good. I enjoy it. Does a pretty good job with that. He's found a good niche there. Let's see. He says, let's hope the exposure, they change and amend it and gets updated. Even more reason why we need to know what's going on about it. Absolutely. So the National Coronavirus Command Council is not exactly something that makes you feel warm and fuzzy now, does it? Think about that. What's going on there? Who's in charge? Who's making decisions? So I think that for South Africa, when President Nkosazana Dlamini, sorry, she's not president, she's minister. I keep forgetting, unfortunately, Cyril can't come out and give a press conference because he's yet to get permission from Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma. Perhaps Cyril ought to make a phone call to Jacob Zuma and see if he's got an in. Maybe he can help. Or maybe Ace can get him in the door. Anyway, yeah, I say that a bit tongue-in-cheek, but you got to begin to wonder what's going on with the governance of South Africa and the flouting of the Constitution and parliamentary rule, which is going on a daily basis now by the ANC. Let's see what else here. New Zealand Super Rugby starting again. June 13th. Where'd you get that from, Ben? Are you serious? How can New Zealand Super Rugby start then? Only New Zealand franchises playing each other, but at least it's some live. Well, I hope so. South Africa, well, June of 2024, after the ANC has lost office, then the lockdown will be done in South Africa, and we can have rugby again if anybody's left that can play it. Yikes. And yet the ANC says class. Yeah, why isn't that typical of governments, including my government, to classify over classify things? One of the consistent things that the Government Accountability Office, the GAO here in the United States, finds when it comes to U.S. government documentation and classification is that we tend to overclassify. People slap classification things on just about anything. And the irony is that most of those people are not classification authority. The number of people in the U.S. federal government in the executive branch who have the authority to actually classify a document is rather limited. It's less than about 4,000, it's around 4,000 or less total people in the U.S. executive branch have that authority. And that would include, of course, the president. And then, interestingly enough, attachés have that authority. They have the authority to classify documents up to a certain level. So ambassadors have the same authority as well. Anyway, but it's not simply willy-nilly. You can't, I work as an analyst, so this is classified. If the information comes from a classified source and you incorporate it, it becomes classified. If you present it to the classification authority or they give you derivative authority, you can put the classification on it. But we tend to just, oh, this is classified secret, this is confidential, yada, yada, yada. And so many things are classified and kept from the public domain. But in this country, we have public law that will allow that information to be declassified through a Freedom of Information Act. But you have to know about it, or you have to know about the topic so you can request it. So, for instance, you want to say, I would like the classified documents on the Bay of Pigs invasion, and you give a specific time frame what you're looking for. They have to go and look through that for classification, declassification. Now, normally classification lasts 25 years, but it can be extended far longer than that. And that changes over time. It depends on the circumstances. But even the Kennedy assassination files, we're still waiting for those to be declassified. And it's been over 50 years. So, Nicholas says, consult to the armed forces. With the SANDF? Happy to do it if they want to pay me. I'll be do it. I can help them out a lot. Hey, Arnold, welcome aboard. Glad to see you here. Glad you made it in. Nicholas is an amalgam of the KGB. Oh, you're going to say it's an anagram. Jason says, have you seen Ronaldo's new video on... Yeah, I was watching it, and then for some strange reason, I switched over to Germ's live stream. I'm not sure why I did that. He had an interesting guest on. I didn't finish watching it. I saw about half of it, and people keep talking about blood boiling. Yeah, my blood's boiling. That's just absolutely insane. That child is now traumatized. The psychological damage done to that child because of this nonsense conduct by government officials. Who do they think they are? Are they simply trying to replicate life that many people in the townships saw in the 1970s and 1980s with the police coming in and their conduct and behavior? Is that what they're trying to replicate? Is that what they want to be? Is this an ego trip, or they simply think they're doing their jobs? They're not doing their jobs. They're oppressing. That's not necessary. Like arresting surfers on the beach, arresting a couple, one of whom is a lawful migrant, a lawful immigrant to South Africa, has a child who's South African with a South African citizen, and the child's on the beach, and they arrest these people, drag them to the police station, where the police aren't even bothered to wear protective masks in the police station, where people can't see them, the general public. Yeah, that's right. Bunch of hypocrisy going on there and here. Chris Cuomo, you must follow the lockdown conditions. You people out misbehaving, shameful on you. You're just a bunch of right-wing Yahoo, racist, redneck, Trump supporters. That's what you are. Oh, is that you, Chris Cuomo? Out exercising in public, no mask? Oh, did you also get positive for COVID-19, as did your spouse, as a consequence of your reprehensible personal behavior, Chris Cuomo? Yeah, that'd be Chris Cuomo. The hypocrisy never ends. What I love about people on the left is that governance is for the governed, not for the elites who run governance. We don't apply. So if you're a cadre and you have one of the 8,000 cabinet positions in the South African government, you're entitled to blue lights, so you don't have to sit in traffic and you just zip through, putting pedestrians and other motorists' lives at risk with the reprehensible blue light conduct that takes place across South Africa. Urgh. It's not just there. It happens in many places. I will say this, that sort of conduct isn't very common here in the United States, at least in D.C., where you might expect it to happen. I'm not so sure about New York. I don't think it's as common, but you have the UN there, so maybe it happens. But in D.C., you rarely see that sort of behavior compared to places I live in Africa where it's a daily occurrence and you have to worry about you're going to get run over by overzealous security officials and their blue light parades. Ugh. Anyway, so I get on that one there. Nicholas says, I believe, Ben, New Zealand are going to level 2. Oh, that's good. Well, I have to give the New Zealand rugby officials a little bit of credit. When it was unclear what was going to happen with Super Rugby, they said that they were going to be shutting the borders down and people would be quarantined for 2 weeks coming in at the early part of this. That actually helped Super Rugby make a decision to suspend the rest of the games. And Super Rugby is one of the sporting leagues that went for the longest. And you can look in early March, the second week of March, they were finally finishing the last games, including games with no crowd like in Argentina. But I will give the New Zealand authorities credit for that, for some clarity, so we could at least stop. But Super Rugby coming back, that'd be fantastic. But guys, gals, the whole thing is going to be all up in the air now. We're going to see all kinds of things when it comes to sporting events, unless we have some sort of, preseason sort of, Mox-Nix games that don't count. Players have not been training together. They've not been on the pitch. And this, like in hockey. So the American Hockey League is a minor league here in the U.S. and Canada that feeds players into the National Hockey League. Very, very good quality hockey nonetheless. And historic, in fact, nearly as old as the National Hockey League, dating back to the 1930s. Well, the American Hockey League, the local franchise here is the Hershey Bears, world famous for many, many top hockey players, having played their ice hockey players. The Hershey Bears had an average start to the season, but then they caught fire, and they were on top of it, and they were kicking butt, winning game after game, very convincing, great goaltending, great offense, and when they didn't have great scoring, they had great defense. And they really had surged. But then as we went to the lockdown, the Providence Bruins, who are the franchise, the minor league franchise for the Boston Bruins, the Providence Bruins went on a streak of 12 wins, no losses, and 1 tie. And so based on points, they wound up with 83 points and the Bears with 82. So now the season is over. They've officially suspended it today. That's it. And so Providence gets to claim the title of division champions, even though the Bears have been sitting in that position for several weeks. Disappointing for hockey fans. I'm one of those disappointed fans. Let's see. Arnold's got a few things to say. Saw Ronaldo's live stream. As a South African myself, the lockdown here has become absurd. Well, it's absurd here as well, Arnold. You know, I live in a county where there are 767 confirmed cases of COVID-19 over 2 months after. We started lockdown here 2 days after South Africa, or actually the next day after South Africa did. So 767 confirmed cases, 13 fatalities attributed to it. By the way, that number was reported as 13 a couple weeks ago, then it was lowered back to 7 because they misreported. But now it's officially at 13. 450,000 people, 13 cases. Largely a rural or peri-urban county with only one major city in it, and that's York, and it's not even a major city. Yet we are on lockdown, and we've been extended through May 28th, and the governor's talking about taking us into June. What is the justification? What is the reasoning? What is the science behind that? It beggars the imagination. Now, our lockdown is not like South Africans. We're not banned from cigarettes. I don't smoke, but we're not banned from cigarettes. You can purchase beer still. You can't purchase hard liquor. Those stores are closed because the state controls them. But it's just, it's beyond comprehension. So the lockdown is absurd in many places here. Parts of the state have been lifted from lockdown, but they're only the counties where almost nobody lives in the north central part of the state and northwestern part, which are largely mountainous and forested and very small population base. But the rest of the state, 2/3 of the counties remain in lockdown at least through May 28th. Crazy stuff. So Best Buy, which is electronics and appliance store, is closed. I can't go there, but I can go to the home repair stores, which are necessary because people have to fix their plumbing fixtures, their commodes, things like that. But you can also buy appliances there. So I can go buy a refrigerator at Lowe's or Home Depot, but I can't go to Best Buy and get one which might be cheaper on sale because they're not physically open, because they're not essential. Go figure. Anyway. No matter even if you use protective measures, you can't do it. And there's inconsistencies. I'm very close to a county line, and one county's coming out of lockdown, the other is still in it. So I can drive like 5 miles this way, go shopping here, and don't have to do things, in the other place 5 miles away. I can't even go into stores; they're closed. It's crazy. It's absurd. That is the right term for it. And what is the benefit? 620,000 people die from malaria this year. 800,000 from suicide. Well, last year, 800,000 from suicide. 900,000 from HIV/AIDS, and 1.5 million from tuberculosis. After nearly 6 months of COVID-19 globally, we have 285,000 fatalities attributed to it. Less than half of what we'll lose from malaria alone in a given year. Of course, the proponents of suspending civil liberties and imprisoning innocent people around the planet would argue that I'm just being a conspiracy theorist and a nut job, and then I simply want to oppose the government of the day. Nope. Not the case at all. Don't recommend people misbehave. I recommend people follow the guidance given by governments, but I recommend governments get their heads out of their collective fourth point of contact and start governing in an effective fashion and stop governing by hysteria. Start governing by science. All of the things that we've been told, almost all the things by government, have been repeatedly wrong, whether it's the World Health Organization, the Chinese Communist Party in Beijing, the administration here in D.C., the governor of New York, the mayor of New York City, the governor of South Africa. Repeatedly, we've been given bad information. Understandable. It's a new virus. It's a developing situation. But they shouldn't sit there on high as if they know everything and telling us that we know nothing. It's not particularly helpful, folks, because you don't know everything. If you did, we'd have solved this a long time ago, and we wouldn't have people in lockdown. Why aren't we really easing the lockdown conditions and letting people who are less vulnerable get back to the daily business of making the world's economy work and then protecting the vulnerable? All right, let's see what else we got here. Arnold said, thanks, you're welcome, your blood's boiling too. Yep, complete power trip, absolutely, and it's all over the place. Look at the way that someone asked me about earlier about Andrew Cuomo. Look at the way he addresses his press conferences, the arrogance of it, telling people, that they're, anyway. And the judge in Texas, in Dallas, who imprisoned the salon owner because she was selfish, because she opened her business. The automatic assumption by people that those who own businesses are greedy and trying to make money simply because they're trying to look after their employees and ensure that there's a business there for them to work in after this nonsense is lifted. And the automatic assumption that they're just greedy is just insane. It shows a complete lack of understanding for how the world's economy works, how life works. And the fact that people rise to positions in the media and in government and are that ignorant of how life is and how the world works is deeply disturbing. Deeply disturbing. For those of you who watched the video with Gareth Cliff and that lunatic with the bizarre face. I know I have a lot of face hair, so I'm going to talk, but strange kind of, Van Gogh, and then the ponytail. I don't know what that person's deal was. And then the moderator who looked like she was smelling bad milk or a turd under her nose. Condescending way she was talking. And how Gareth Cliff just, told this person off. But the assumption that Gareth Cliff was just greedy and is only in the position that he's in because of white privilege and things like that, it just drove me nuts to see the other person who appears to be white living in a luxurious, sumptuous house, having access to broadband so they can get on here and pontificate about broken, dumb ideas. And Gareth Cliff just like Zorro, eviscerated. That guy's entrails were just laying on his desk table right there. Mic drop, Gareth. Case closed. Well done. Excellent. Very talented member of the media right there. I hope that people recognize that. So what do I think of... Jason, funny, I didn't see this. He set me up really well for this. Jason Rennick, he says, what do you think of Gareth Cliff's speech to the president? I think it was spot on. Absolutely spot on. There was one or two comments towards the end in which I wouldn't agree with. I'm not encouraging people to misbehave, but everything else is absolutely right. It was very calm, very measured, spot on, and made the point quite clear to the Deputy President Cyril Ramaphosa. Oh, I'm sorry, he's president. That's right, I forgot. I thought Zuma, Ramaphosa, Ramaphosa. No, Zuma. Yeah, Cyril definitely really. Really should listen to what Gareth Cliff had to say. But of course he's not. They don't care. They don't care at all. That's why the states is the Second Amendment, and every country in the world should have it too. That's right. We have a right to keep and bear arms. Absolutely. Something I defend, even though I don't have arms sitting around here. You would think after this event, trying to arrest a 5-year-old deputy president... Okay, I swear to God, Paul, I didn't see your comment. I didn't see that before. That came out of me. It's funny how we're kind of thinking alike there. You think the Deputy President Cyril would address the nation ASAP, ease the tensions? Nope, he's MIA. Yeah, whose basement is he in? Nicholas. Okay. Arnold says, the last time Cyril Ramaphosa addressed us as a nation over 2 weeks ago, we were so frustrated because no clarity of direction. Yep, absolutely right. Nicholas says, yep. Oh, wow. How are your lockdown levels compared to ours, Chris? Well, I think I've kind of touched on it, Arnold, because I think the chat is a little bit behind my stream here, or I'm behind. Let me catch up. So the lockdown levels here are not nearly as draconian as you have in South Africa. We're not restricted to our homes. We are allowed to exercise in our local area. And I'm very fortunate there's a community park just to the side of this housing development, rather small. I can walk around here and get a lot of walking in, but there's so many kids out who aren't in school riding their bikes and being annoying that I don't want to be around them, so I go to the park. But I get tired of walking or running in the same place. I'm a person who likes to find different places to walk or run all the time, so that's a little frustrating for me. But it's a small price to pay. But we can exercise. We can go to the store to do necessary things. Any store that we need to that's open. Now, not all of them open. But now we're being required to wear some sort of face protection. So I usually put a scarf on. It looks like I'm a Western cowboy, bank robber, and pull out my 6-shooter. All right, I want your Five Guys burgers now. Give me that beer. So we're allowed to do that, and we can of course get the necessary staples and things. But we can't buy hard liquor in this state, and there's a number of other restrictions. But by and large, as long as people adhere to it, it's not that onerous. But it is weighing on people, especially for those who are locked in and shut in as a consequence of this. There's no sporting events, of course. We can't have any gatherings of people over a certain number. I don't even remember what it is now because it's been so long. I've never been closer than about 2 or 3 people in the last almost 3 months, so it's pretty crazy. But yeah, it's a walk in the park compared to South Africa. Absolutely a walk in the park, but it's destroying everything. There's a large Ford dealership near here, Bob Ruth Ford in Dillsburg, Pennsylvania, and they employ a few hundred people, and they've had to fire 85% of their staff because the state has told them that those people can't work because they're in close proximity to clients. Additionally, they have over 100 vehicles which were sold to customers before the lockdown took effect. The state is preventing those customers from collecting their vehicles. Yet they still have to pay their loans to the banks that loaned them the money to buy those cars, even though they don't possess them. How moronic is that? The owner of the company, the son of the founder, Rob Ford, the father was Bob Ford. Rob Ford went online and does these videos on Facebook, and he talked about it. And you should have seen the trolls who came and attacked me. You greedy, selfish SOB. You're just greedy. No, that's not it at all. He made it clear in his video that his business has the resources to survive this. Obviously, they've been very successful over the course of about 5 decades and built up, I imagine, significant capital reserve that they can weather this by meeting their obligations and bills and paying the staff that are actually there to repair vehicles and such that they can keep on staff. But they'll survive. But the people that work for him, a lot of them live from paycheck to paycheck as a consequence of personal decisions or issues in their life. And they're not collecting paychecks now. They're unemployed. And so they're suffering. And his point about a month ago now was that we had like 3 or 4 deaths at that time. Now we have 13, and we had less than 200 cases after a month plus of this. And he's like, why are we locked down? Why can't these people come back to work? Why can't my customers collect their vehicles? Now, he's already got his money. He's not asking for the money. He's just trying to serve his customers. So it's very frustrating, and it's uneven. So even though we're not locked down in the same fashion that you are in South Africa, or in Botswana, or Zimbabwe, or Namibia, some of which are easing their restrictions now, this is just nonsense for everybody. It's absolutely insane. 5 miles. I can't even drive with Towns and Nelson Mandela Bay Metro without paperwork. Throwback. Yeah, where are your papers? Yeah, no, it's like the pass laws, right? Except it affects everybody, not just Black South Africans and colors and Indians. It's whites too. Where are your papers? This is crazy. Many people lost their jobs. Yeah, South Africa's economy is destroyed, folks. I'm sorry, I don't mean to bring that bad news to you, but you have no commercial aviation industry. South African Airlines, which was the sick man of South Africa, should have been liquidated a decade ago, will now likely be liquidated. Of course, South African Airlines owns Mango, the discount airline, and so that goes down with it, up in smoke. SA Express filed for liquidation the moment that the lockdown started, so it's gone, and that was a feeder airline for South African Airlines, so that disrupts their network. Comair, which is other major airline in South Africa, has cargo and passenger service. It also owns the discount airline Kulula, and it has now gone into business rescue. And I know in Ronaldo's stream I said that's bankruptcy, and somebody said that's not bankruptcy. It is bankruptcy. It's just, okay, here in the U.S., Chapter 11 is bankruptcy. It is essentially the same, business rescue. They reorganize the assets, they protect you from creditors so you can come out with a plan to emerge from bankruptcy. Business rescue is bankruptcy. All of your major commercial aviation companies that carry 15.5 million passengers each year in South Africa, around and out of South Africa and inside, are bankrupt. You have no commercial aviation industry. Much of your hotel industry is going to go under as well. Now, opportunities will emerge for those who have the resources who can borrow money and build to replace or buy these assets on the song, but the carnage is not acceptable and it is preventable. It shouldn't have to happen. Not to mention we haven't even talked about the racial policies taking place and the exclusion of minority-owned businesses from getting money from the Tourism Relief Fund and undoubtedly from the other national fund that was meant to help out businesses. We have no evidence because they can easily just ignore applications or deny them, and the government's not sharing that information. Let's see, what else? There's a book that came out by the late William Cooper's Pale Horse. It came out in the 90s, an audiobook. I'm not familiar with that, Sean. I have to check it out. I wonder if that's interesting. Forget about other deaths. Yeah, people do forget about other deaths, yeah. And they overhype this situation: malaria, HIV, suicide. I didn't touch about hypertension, high blood pressure, and cardiovascular disease, which is the number one killer of human beings. By the way, folks, for those who haven't heard me say this, each and every day before COVID-19, around the world, 163,000 human beings pass away. Think about that. 163,000 globally. Now, given the fact there's 9 billion of us, that's not a surprising figure, but we often don't think about that because it's kind of a morbid thought. But yeah, that's a lot of people, each and every year. Yeah. So let's see. Gareth Cliff says it all. Great. I feel sorry for those with mental conditions. Yeah, no, Arno, I'm with you. Well, not even those with just the mental conditions, those who are developing mental conditions as a consequence of isolation. The extreme isolation is taking place for a lot of people, particularly the elderly or the infirm. This is really bad. Or the mentally disabled or mentally challenged. This is a real serious problem. I saw a short clip about a situation in the UK and where someone, yeah, it's just really sad. People are dropping off. It must be because it's almost midnight. You guys wimping out on me? You going to bed? Come on, I don't even e-bag here. There's no super chats. There's none of that stuff. I did ask you to smash the like button, but people dropping off. What's going on? Midnight, you guys got to go to bed? Come on, almost none of you are working if you're in South Africa. And if you're in Botswana, I know you're not working because the conditions haven't been lifted yet. Let's see what else. Arnold Johnson's crap. I'm bipolar, driving me nuts. Wow, okay. But family on WhatsApp works. Yeah, WhatsApp, Skype, the fact that we have the internet, even in much of Africa, where places you wouldn't have expected it, has been a godsend for a lot of people. But you've got to remember to reach out to your family members, particularly those who are isolated, and stay in touch with them. Okay, so here, I was on Ronaldo Ho's program. I was going to talk about expropriation without compensation. I'm not going to do that right now, but I am going to talk about this. So this is a book I wanted to mention on that broadcast, and I'll do this next Sunday when I'm on Ronaldo talking about expropriation without compensation. This is a fascinating book by Kevin Cahill with Rob McMahon, and this is called Who Owns the World? This was published in 2010, and it is a fascinating study of who actually owns the surface of the planet. So who is the world's single largest landholder on the entire planet? Anyone take a guess? I'll give you a chance to guess before I answer it. But this book will tell you that. Now, it does have an overfocus on North America and the United States, but it does talk about the rest of the world. And South Africa has a brief mention in here, about a page. It actually deserves a lot more attention. But the number of people who actually own land on this planet is rather small, and it's unusual for people to have tenure or title to land individually. But who is the single largest landholder on the planet? This person owns land all over the world. I'll help you. It's not Ted Turner. So then I was also going to bring up this book, which is about the land issue in South Africa. It's called Landmarked. And this is about the process of going through land restitution and what was happening in the early part of ANC rule, the first 10 years or so. This is by Cheryl Walker, who worked for the land claims and land restitution in South Africa. And this was an interesting book with lots of good information. Okay, some people came back. Did people go to the loo? What happened? All right, and if we got around to it, if people hadn't fallen asleep or disappeared on me, I was willing to talk about this today because I know some people are interested in history. And this is the Second World War. This is part 2 of it, and this is Finland's war of choice when it joined the Nazi Germany to reinvade the Soviet Union. And this is Frozen Hell, which is a book that talks about the Finnish campaign in 1939, how the Finns held off the Soviets with desperate measures. An amazing campaign by the Finns, and they smacked the Soviet machine in the face. And it didn't go well for the general officers in charge of the Soviet forces, who found themselves taken care of. Let's see. Which book looks interesting? UK. Nicholas, UK, do you mean as in no, an individual? There's actually a person who is the world's largest landowner. Who is that person? Sean's, and I'm in South Africa, but I work for a company in Eastern Standard. I only go to bed at 4. Oh, okay. So do you work for a company that's based in the U.S. or in Dubai? If you want to answer that, Sean, you don't have to. Who went all over the world? Chris Wyatt. Well, I have. The only places I've actually been to Asia now because of my trip to Japan for the Rugby World Cup. So I've got Asia. But the one place I've never been is South America proper. Other than Chile and maybe Argentina, I don't have much interest in going to it. Maybe I will one day. Bucket list sort of thing. I have been to the Caribbean Basin a few times, but I've never been to South America proper. But I've been all over the world aside from that. I haven't been to Russia. With my security clearance, it was forbidden. Not allowed to do that for a long time. So the Vikings? No, not the Vikings. All right. I'm not seeing a response to the biggest landowner, so I'm going to mention it. The single largest holder of land on the planet is the Queen, Queen Elizabeth II. She owns more land than anyone else on this planet. Let's see if I can find the actual amount here. I don't want to drag this out, but I'll tell you what I'll do is, for those who tune into Ronaldo Hose on Sunday, I'll remember to look up the amount rather than waste your time right now. But the Queen is the single largest landowner on the planet. And then most of the other large owners are other sovereigns around the planet who come in second, third, fourth, fifth, and so on. Yeah, the single largest landowner. But most people find it interesting to discover that only about 15% of humans on the planet have tenure or title to any land on the planet whatsoever. So it is not the norm for people to own land. It's highly unusual. Communal ownership of land is not as uncommon, but that is the case for Pablo Escobar. No, not Pablo Escobar. Yes. What's your best war movie? I've seen a nice one. I got to be honest with you. This one might surprise people, but the one for me, probably because it holds personal meaning, is the best war movie I've ever enjoyed, and I thought was the most realistic and well done, and really was the Black Hawk Down movie. Bowden's book that was transformed into a movie with a fantastic cast, and it was made at the right time when a lot of these guys were young enough that they really popped. Black Hawk Down was really well done, I thought, and pretty accurate and an amazing movie. I really enjoyed that movie. Black Hawk Down, something else. Half Right. I must be so excited. Yeah, UK, Half Right, the Queen. Must be so exciting. Oh, Paulie's dropping off. He's going to bed. All right, get some sleep, Paulie. Thanks for tuning in. I appreciate it, especially since this was an unplanned Stray Voltage live stream. It must be so exciting and an eye-opener to be able to travel the world. Yeah, Arnold, yeah, and especially for someone who grew up with nothing. I mean, I had nothing when I was a kid. I had to get public assistance to go to university. I didn't have the $25 to apply to university. My high school guidance counselor got that waived so I could go and get admitted to Ohio University. And then I worked and I had public assistance in the form of guaranteed loans and also state grants for me to attend university. So to go from that to someone who had no resources and owned virtually nothing to someone who's traveled the world, and I'm a frugal traveler, so I often do it on the cheap, but and I also do my own travel. I never take tours. I've only done 1 or 2 tours in my entire life, but I've been so many places. And we haven't even talked about Germany or Europe. I mean, I've been everywhere in Europe except for a few places like Albania. I've never been there, in Bulgaria, but most of the in Lithuania. But most of the rest of Europe, I've been everywhere. And like in Germany, I've been to most noteworthy places in Germany multiple times. I mean, like I've been in Bavaria hundreds of times. When I was stationed in Italy, I would go to South Tyrol, which is the German-speaking portion of Italy. I'd go up there every weekend because I spoke German. And so I'd go up there quite a bit. I've been many places. Very fortunate. But, you know, you make your own fortune, too. I mean, the reason I was there is because I was serving uniform. And then when my time was my time, I made the most use of it. I saved my money. I traveled on the cheap. Used to take a cooler, buy lunch meat at German butchery shops and bread, the Brötchen, and pack that stuff, buy some Cokes, drive. And then when I was in Germany, carry an extra petrol can, so I'd fill it up with the tax-exempt gasoline that I could get as a military member, put it in the vehicle, top off the vehicle, drive in Italy, and then I wouldn't have to pay the 3 times the price in the Italians, what they pay for gas, and Switzerland and the Netherlands and things like that. So yeah, I always traveled frugally and made the most of it. And every time I travel, later in my career, the last half of my career, when I was traveling in Africa or I was traveling in Europe, typically if I could, not every time, but most times, typically if I could, Elon Musk has just come up. He is defiant. His California factory is reopening despite the coronavirus rules, which you guys told me about when we started the stream. It's just now popping up in the newsfeed. But I would always take advantage of my travel, my official travel, to reduce my cost. So, for instance, if I was in Botswana and they said, well, let me pick a better case. So I went to the Women's Rugby World Cup in 2014, in August 2014, because I had to go to the headquarters in Stuttgart. I was transferring from Uganda to Ethiopia. And so I had to go up there for office calls and to meet and also get my directions from the general about what I'm supposed to focus on. So they brought me to Germany. They paid for my flight. They paid for my hotel in Stuttgart. And then I wasn't due to travel back for another several days. Well, that weekend, there's no meetings for me. I'm there. So I bought a ticket. I flew to Paris. I went to the Women's Rugby World Cup, flew back to Stuttgart, did the rest of my meetings Monday, Tuesday, and flew back on Wednesday. So if you can, you take advantage of things like that. And that's one of the reasons why I've seen so many places and done so many things, because I'm just make good use of my time when I can. Nicholas says, Arnold says, started from humble beginnings. Yes, thank you. But I also, at various times in my childhood, Arnold, I was middle class and once sort of upper middle class. Didn't really see that as an individual, but that were the circumstances. But then also very humble beginnings. When I was in high school, there was a period of time we had no electricity. We had no plumbing, so I used an outhouse or outdoor privy to go to the restroom, and I fetched water from a cistern for showers and for cooking, milked cows, and we used a generator for that, so we had enough electricity to run the equipment to milk the cows, and then collected eggs from chickens in the morning. And that was my part of my high school years. And there are reasons for that, not because America's a poor country, and I won't go into it, but nothing to do with me. And then I never had a car in high school. Most people around the world don't, but that's a very normal American experience is for high school kids to get a car when they turn 16. But I never had a car. I walked everywhere. And we're talking, 10, 15 miles, depending on some things I was doing sometimes. And when I played tennis, it was almost always a 5 mile, 8 kilometer walk up and down hills every night to get home. So, not what was me. Just saying that's experience I had. So I guess that makes you a bit more humble when you come from those beginnings. It certainly makes you recognize and appreciate things better. So Nicholas says, I'm assuming you enlisted in the Army, not Marines. Did you go straight to Officer Candidate School? No. Okay, Nicholas. So I went to university at the age of 17 in 1982, and then I didn't really do well in school. I was focused on other things. And no, not weed. I don't do weed. Never have. But I was focused on other things, and didn't go to class as often as I should, and didn't perform academically as well as I should have. Not because I wasn't capable, because I didn't apply myself. I was free and on my own, and that was a bigger focus for me, and that was wrong. But no regrets. I learned an awful lot about myself and about life, and that first year experience at university is something that is a big part of who I am today as a consequence of that. You might be shocked to discover that as a child I was painfully shy and not outgoing. I was very much an introvert. And now I'm very much an extrovert. And it had a lot to do with that first year at college. And then I came in the Army. So I enlisted in the Army after 1 year at university, spent 3.5 years on active duty, and then went back to university and became an officer. I didn't go to Officer Candidate School, but I did go to the Reserve Officer Training Corps, or ROTC as we call it at university. And that's how I got my commission. And because I had been enlisted prior, that time did not count against my maximum time in status. Status being enlisted, warrant officer, or officer. So I was enlisted. That didn't count. So when I became an officer, I was able to serve 30 years as long as I reached the rank that'll let me stay. And in order to stay 30 years, you have to be a full colonel or higher. Otherwise, you can't stay 30 years. So I think at lieutenant colonel, you have to get out at 26, I think it is. So I was able to stay 30 years as an officer, and then you add my time, my enlisted time, and it wind up with 36 and a half years in uniform. And that's how you get it. Stationed at Campbell at the time of Black Hawk Down. I knew that 160th Special Operations Unit, Aviation Regiment. Yeah, those guys, they are. I actually had an opportunity to be an intelligence officer they have 2 battalions in that aviation unit, which, by the way, those who don't know, what we're talking about here is the 160th SOAR, Special Operations Aviation Regiment. That was not top secret. That was a classified unit, but you couldn't even tell people it existed at one point, but now people know about it. They're the ones with the Hughes MD-500 Little Birds helicopters, and then the specially designed Chinooks. So I had an opportunity to be the S2, the intelligence officer for the 2nd Battalion in that regiment. And I considered it. I interviewed for it, and they were willing to send me to Fort Rucker to go through the dunk tank and the tests they give to people who go to aviation school. You're not going to be an aviator, but you have to be able to pass those things. I decided against it because I realized that if I went there and did that, I'd spend 2 or 3 years doing that. And then it was time for me to be looked at for major. I would have had nothing but the same sort of job. I would have had 7 or 8 years of being an intelligence officer at battalion and brigade. And I was worried that the Army would say, well, you're a one-trick pony. You haven't done anything else. That's because you're not comfortable trying anything else. So they would pass me over and I wouldn't get promoted to major. So no regrets. I passed up on that. But I did have an opportunity. It doesn't mean I would have gotten it, but I was very competitive for it, and there weren't many candidates. So I probably would have gotten it. Nicholas says, my old man did a string at Spandau where Hess was contained. Yeah, right on the east-west wall. Told me when they woke up, they would wave to the Ruskies and German guards and say, hello, Ivan. Yeah, no, Spandau. And no, not Spandau Ballet, the band, but Spandau, the prison, which is where Rudolf Hess was detained for many, many years. And a lot of people speculate that he was murdered there, whether that's true or not. But I was stationed in Germany when that happened. So you can imagine speculation took place. I guess that's how old, how much of a fossil I am at this stage. I don't know. Anyway, so that's the Cold War. That's a long time ago. The world really has changed quite a bit since then, and not always for the better, ladies and gentlemen. Not always for the better. Yeah, so that's... hey, listen, I don't know how many of you tuned in last Friday, just a couple of days ago, for the Giselle concert, but here I am shamelessly promoting her concert again with good reason. It's free. It's on my channel. You can pop off the stream or you can check it out at your leisure any other time. Just play it on your tablet in the background. You don't have to even watch the video. Just play the concert. Really good music. You play it on your mobile, or you can put it on your PC, or if you've got a Roku or something like that, play it. It's a fantastic concert. Giselle is an amazing artist. She's an Afrikaans singer who is from Namibia, from Grootfontein, in the northern part of Namibia, and she also lived in the Northern Cape for a bit when she lived in South Africa. Now she lives in Pretoria, and I had contacted her manager and just let him know I really appreciate her music after I discovered her video Sudvest about Namibia. Fantastic cinematography, great song. And so after I'd learned about that, I wrote to them, and then he wrote back to me as curious, and then we started chatting, and then he'd asked me to appear on his television station, which is a streaming television station. They're putting some programming together and wanted me to appear on it. That will come later in the year. But in the meantime, he recontacted me and said, hey, would you be willing to play Giselle's album debut concert on your channel? I'm like, well, I didn't ask, but I'm thinking, is he going to ask me for money? I said, well, yeah. He goes, well, great. Let's go ahead and make it happen then. So we live streamed Giselle's album debut, Für uns Mensa, which is her album. And we played a lot of her music, her earlier music, and her new music. It was fantastic, amazing. She sang a couple of songs in English, but the rest were in Afrikaans. Even if you don't sing, or even if you don't know Afrikaans, it's worth tuning into and checking out. It's amazing. Arnold says she has a beautiful, well, she does have an amazing voice, doesn't she, Arnold? It's really, she's really talented. And, it's one thing for recorded stuff, because the studio can tweak that, But the concert you saw, obviously there was video footage in the back and there were a couple of videos playing, but she was singing in front of the green screen. And I actually have a picture of the green screen. It was a green screen because her manager, Johan Issel, sent me a picture because I said, okay, I'm all set up on this end. He goes, well, I'm ready here, going to go live shortly. And he sent a picture to me of the green screen in the background with one of the cameras because he had multiple camera angles. And so I saw the green screen. So, so she was standing in front of the green screen when you saw those concert lights and stuff behind her and then the videos playing behind her. Really well done production. Absolutely free. I mean, right now you've got other artists. I think I saw Brandon Piper is going to do a concert in South Africa, but people are charging for that. You have to buy your tickets through CompuTicket and such. But Giselle's concert is free. I have the copyright permissions, and it is there, and it's a live stream. Well, it's recorded now, but it was live on Friday evening. So please share it with friends and family and let others know about it. Whether you listen to Afrikaans or not, it's truly a stirring voice, as Arnold says. She has an amazing voice. So our ranger buddy says, did you get a Spanaway brick to pit next to your chunk of the Berlin Wall? No, I have a couple little pieces of the Berlin Wall, but that's pieces I picked up on my own when I was up there. I'll leave it at that. I also have a treasured memento from the Cold War. For those who know or remember, ever saw the photographs of those concrete posts that were marking the inner German border between the Deutsche Demokratische Republik, or the DDR, and the Federal Republic of Germany, so that's East and West Germany. They used to have these concrete posts, and they had these pewter plaques on them that said Deutsche Demokratische Republik. I have one of those. I will not disclose how I came across it. But I have one. I've had it since before the Cold War ended. It is a memento that I treasure. I used to keep it in my office. And so, maybe one day I'll show that to folks. But yeah, that's from the inner German border, which to me is more special than the Berlin Wall, because if there had been a conflict, I would not have been in Berlin. The Berlin Brigade would have been a roadblock that would have been run over pretty quickly by the Soviets and the East Germans. I would have deployed to the Fulda Gap, along with my compatriots in the American 8th Infantry Division, to stop the Soviet hordes from coming through, and probably would have been a speed bump, and we would have suffered immense casualties had there ever been a conflict, in the hopes that further forces could follow on from the UK, from France, the Netherlands, and troops from the US to come in to stop the Soviet hordes from pouring across Central Europe. But we would have been the sacrificial lamb. So I have that post because it came from a location where I would have deployed, assuming we were able to march in convoy out there safely to do it. So yeah, it's kind of special for me. Yep. Nicholas says, the first thing that sprung to mind is maybe you had a Che Guevara. No. I'm not a fan of Che. That guy was an opportunist. He was just a clown who got involved in everything under the sun. Yep, absolutely. Yeah, no, the Cold War. Wow. Sometimes we pine for the simpler times. And while the Cold War was far from simple, certainly the bifurcation of the world into two camps was much simpler than what we face today. And since we weren't as dependent on technology and media and the IT world, in many respects, it was much safer for us and a less vulnerable world. We didn't have to rely on people penetrating networks, getting into our accounts, disturbing transmission lines for electricity, for breaking into bank records, for upsetting news, putting out fake news. Just think of all the trolls you come across that are just people sitting around, or bots that are just communicating and calling people names and trashing your sites. You didn't have that. But by the same token, in many ways, life is better in many respects. So just a question about how you review things. But no, not a fan of Che Guevara. Not a fan at all. Well, folks, we've been on for an hour and 40 minutes. We've lost a few people because the hour, it's nighttime for them. I'll go longer if you like. I can stay on a bit longer and see if we can run up to the top of the hour maybe and talk a little bit more. But what are some topics you guys might want to talk about beyond what I've discussed here? I'm really kind of bummed out about sports. I'm really hoping that we get back to sports. It was good to see that news that was mentioned in the chat earlier about Super Rugby coming back to New Zealand. So hopefully that does take place, and hopefully all of Super Rugby will get back. But I have a feeling we're not going to see it happen. We're probably going to see some kind of truncated sort of thing. The best hope I think we can hold on to for South Africa would be that perhaps the Currie Cup will kick off on schedule. I think the Summer Test Series, if it's not already in jeopardy, which I think it's in jeopardy, I don't think we're going to see the Summer Test Series for the Springboks, which is unfortunate. Springboks have a new coach, and Nibenar, and we're looking forward to seeing what the Springboks can do now that they are the top-ranked team in the world once again, where they should be, and the Rugby World Cup champions. What they will do against other nations is something the rest of the world will pay attention to since they're number one. But with players not playing together, not training together, and not getting games under their belt, this will be an odd situation when the Springboks actually get back. My hope is that at this point, if we do have a summer test series, that there'll be a long training period before it happens, and maybe the game's pushed a little bit later, even if they interfere with the Currie Cup and or Super Rugby, that would happen. Otherwise, we're likely to see an upset that we don't want to see, a la the loss to Japan, the Brave Blossoms, in the 2015 World Cup in Brighton. Don't want a repeat of that. We'd much rather see the Springboks clean up, wipe the table with their opponents. I'd much rather see that. Looking forward to seeing Pieter-Steph du Toit and Eben Etzebeth and Dwayne Vermeulen, Willie Leroux, Elton Yankees even, Herschel Yankees. That's the guy I want to see. Herschel Yankees. Yeah, that's the guy. Makazole Mpipi. Yeah, talented. Lucanio Am. Wow, the Springboks. Fantastic rugby, folks. I imagine I've got mostly a South African crowd here at this point, but yeah, Springboks. I'm so excited, waiting for them to get back. I'm really frustrated because World Rugby has been putting games online on YouTube. So if you're subscribed to the World Rugby channel, you can watch games in their entirety. They have the New Zealand-England semifinal for the 2019 World Cup, but they don't have the Springboks full game on there. Now, maybe somebody's put an illicit copy of it on, but I'm talking about the World Rugby. I don't like to undermine people's copyright and their intellectual property. So I want to watch it, but why are they holding back the Springboks against England final? That's very disappointing. I'd like to watch it again. I had paid for a subscription to NBC Sports Gold, which is a ripoff, and I was entitled to watch the World Cup games. And I had to pay for that because I came back after the pool stage, and you couldn't watch the rest of the World Cup here in the U.S. unless you paid NBC a ridiculous amount of money. But with that came a subscription to the Premier and then the Pro 14 games in UK and Ireland. But I paid for that, and then I was able to watch those games, and that was for about another month, maybe 2 months, and then they're gone. Why is that? I paid for that. I mean, frankly, to be honest, for the length of my subscription for 1 year, I should be able to watch those Rugby World Cup games and replays. What did I pay the $100+ for? What a ripoff. This is one of the problems with rugby and why the financial model is so broken, because they keep fans from watching the game. I mean, I can watch every rugby game you can imagine, conceivable, including provincial competitions, varsity competitions in South Africa, the African qualification for the World Cup that takes place, all of those games, sevens, everything, if I have DSTV and SuperSport. But I'm not in Africa. I don't have DSTV, and I don't have SuperSport. So it's difficult to follow and watch rugby, although it had gotten easy here in the States when it came to Major League Rugby because they'd signed a number of contracts. CBS Sports was broadcasting it. ESPN was broadcasting it, plus local stations were broadcasting it. So you can watch a lot of the Major League Rugby this year until the season was suspended after 5 or 6 games. Another disappointment. Nicholas says, I wouldn't worry too much. Rassie Erasmus has endorsed the new coach, long-term goal, win the cup again. Yeah, I agree, Nicholas. The new coach was a key part. In fact, if you look, the frustrating thing for England was they couldn't score. They couldn't score because the Bucks' defense was just tough. And of course, he was the guy that was focused on coaching the defense. So I think that bodes well for the Springboks, and the fact that Rossi will be running the show bodes well. As long as SARU, the South African Rugby Union, does not resort to its race-based racial policies and claiming that 50% of the team must be black, whatever black is, I guess the color of your skin. I don't know. Some people lighter skin don't identify as black. Some people who look kind of white identify as black, so whatever. But it's ridiculous race policies. As long as those are held at bay and the best South African rugby players are selected to play for the Springboks, I think we'll be in good stead. Whether they're black, they're white, they're colored, they're Asian. It doesn't matter as long as they're the best. That's the decision. That's what should matter. And if SARU is concerned about not enough, in their mind, young black South Africans playing rugby, then they ought to spend some of the resources at the youth level to get the game into townships, communities, and the rural areas where black South Africans might have an interest in it, rather than playing soccer, because it's boring and Bafana sucks. Sorry, folks. The boys. Bafana, not particularly impressive on the pitch. Although they did well in the 2010 World Cup. They got cheated, but they're not very impressive. Let's see what else we got here. Mr. Super 14 Rugby. Currie Cup is always... Yeah, I love the Currie Cup, Arnold, but man, how about you South Africans getting to the damn stadiums? You know, it's embarrassing watching these games with like 12 people in the stands. When I watch a rugby game at Loftus Versfeld and there's like 300 people in the stands, I want to cry. I mean, rugby, South Africa, enough said. Come on, guys. I don't know. There are lots of excuses given about why there's no one in the stadium, but people will say, well, when you go to varsity games, there's 6,000 people. Well, that's great for varsity games, but we're not talking about varsity games. We're talking about Super Rugby, Currie Cup. You need to have fans there in the stands. Newlands typically gets a good crowd, but even that doesn't sell out most of the time these days. Very frustrating. Wouldn't worry. Okay. There are other ways to get hold of the game. Yeah, there are. They're legal and otherwise, but it shouldn't be that complicated, Nicholas. If I want to watch a damn baseball game, I just turn the TV on. I've got Mid-Atlantic Sports Network here. If I'm in New York, I got the Yankees, YES Network, all kinds of things. You just turn on and the sports is presented to you. You don't have to pay for it. Why I have to pay for rugby and then have to hunt around 97 ways to Sunday? Is it my ESPN Plus that's on this weekend? Is it on my NBC Gold? Is it on... You have to hunt around all the time. It's so difficult. And the only way I get to watch the Sevens now is because I paid NBC for their ridiculously expensive and underwhelming sports package for rugby. And all I get is rugby. I don't get any of the other stuff that's on NBC Sports. Nothing. No other sport. Just the rugby for my subscription. Anyway, so... But I love rugby, so I pay it. I was paying rugby TV and paying... what's that other channel? There's a channel here in the U.S. that covers all kinds of esoteric sports. But anyway, Arnold fully agrees. Well, glad. Super 7. Yeah, sevens are... Yeah, Super 7s, okay. The whole self-identity, binary crap, I don't know. I'm going to identify as a horse and enter the Kentucky Derby. Yeah, Nicholas, I love it. Yeah, identify as a horse and enter the Kentucky Derby. That's some good stuff there, man. Well, I identify as a self-proclaimed monarch of a small Southern African nation. And so when the lockdown is lifted and Tom Tabane has resigned as Prime Minister of Lesotho, I shall go to Lesotho and I shall ask the king to step aside and appoint myself as the monarch. If he doesn't want to do that, I'll ask him to appoint me as the benevolent dictator of Lesotho. And I will lead the Basotho people to great heights and glory and a economic renaissance that will lift the Basotho people out of poverty under my good governance. We will implement corruption-free governance, and we will bring people into government, Basotho, who can handle the task in hand. And we'll promote people based on merit, and all will be well. So that is, I self-identify as a benevolent dictator in a small African country. So there you go. So I guess I can be a benevolent dictator in a small African country because I self-identify as that. No, I joke, but for years people said, so what do you want to do when you leave the army? I said, well, I've always wanted to be the benevolent dictator of a small African country. And they look at me like, are you crazy? No, not at all. I even have countries in mind. Like what? I don't know, Swaziland, Lesotho, they seem to be good choices. Botswana doesn't need a dictator. They have a democracy, and while they have some challenges, let's not upset their democratic tradition. But Lesotho and Swaziland are still monarchies, so I could be a benevolent dictator there. Anyway, I'm just saying. Coup d'etat. No coup d'etat. Okay, so In Nelson Mandela Bay, we hardly ever get a match down here. Oh, on television, Nicholas? Is that what you mean? You never get one? Yeah. Well, you guys, you have what was it? The Southern Sons? Don't they play in Port Elizabeth? Isn't that where they played? I think that was the team. Anyway, they were terrible. Aren't they in the Pro 14 now? Very terrible. Not a very good team. I mean, listen, you look at Super Rugby and Currie Cup, you have these waves. The Blue Bulls are great, and they suck. Western Province is amazing. They're average. I didn't say they suck. And now they're great again. Up and down the Cheetahs, mediocre, occasionally rise to the top. The Griquas, you got to love them. Only had a couple decent seasons in the last 40 years. I love their jerseys, and I love the Griquas. Of course, I love the name. It's a name attached to a colored community, Cape Coloreds, who moved up there. Yeah, the Orlums, the Griquas. Yeah, the Griquas are just interesting. Of course, those who follow their games in Kimberley know that opposing teams don't like to go play there because it's like playing in concrete. It's like there's no grass. You get taken down, you hit the ground in Kimberley hard, very hard. I wouldn't want to play on that pitch. Very painful, I imagine. But it does give them a home advantage of some sorts, the Griquas, that is. Anyway. Dogbreaker, hey! I have to go all the way to the top of Tabu Bus. Yeah, no doubt. Where the Kings get, yes, well, that's what happened. So I'll be happy to do that. I will, however, not be jumping out of the plane on the way back down as Giselle did in one of her music videos that you saw on the concert Friday night. And she's like, spring, spring, spring. Like your foot. Anyway, yeah, I won't be jumping out of planes. But yeah, I have to go up to the top of Tabunasu and be appointed as the benign dictator of Lesotho. Now, I should be careful. I've been to Lesotho. They might not let me come back when they keep hearing me say these things. But Dogbreaker, welcome aboard. What are you doing up to and just joining us at this hour? Arnold says, I can only imagine how the lockdown has impacted the livelihoods of sports players. Yeah, no. Well, especially sports like rugby where very few players make much money. Very few players make a lot of money. Those who do are playing either in Japan or Europe, and they're the top players in their field, like Owen Farrell. He's making a lot of money. But even that, look what happened with Saracens. Saracens has been screwed over by Premiership because of the way that they were paying players, including Owen Farrell. So they had to start the season with minus 35 points in the log, I think it was, which essentially guaranteed that they wouldn't make it into the playoffs. And then they fined them another like £5 million or something. It's just insane what they did to Saracens. Not that Saracens' conduct was acceptable, but quite frankly, the salary caps are meant to protect the clubs and not the game or the players. So you have to think about the whole picture when we talk about that. So, by the way, I've never asked anybody, do you like the way that I do the screen here where I'm not the full screen? You've got this nice picture in the background, or would folks rather see a full picture of me on there? I've never really asked that question. When I do the live stream and I have guests on, of course, I keep myself smaller so you can see the guest. But if you think I should have a bigger picture, just let me know. I think somebody in one of the live streams said, hey, can we see you bigger? I think they were watching on a mobile, so I'm really small on a mobile, so I don't know. If you want to see a bigger picture, just let me know and I'll zoom the picture out. But that, for those who don't know, that photograph in the background is the Mahalisberg, and that is the northern edge of the Mahalisberg, but on the south side of the highway traveling from Zeerust to Rustenburg. And this is on the approaches to Rustenburg. If you were on the left-hand side, you would be looking in the direction of the Royal Bafokeng Stadium, and the platinum mines start just a little bit after that. So, yep. Let me see. Seconded to the UK, France, Italian League now. Still atrocious. Exactly. Neighborhood has been banned in SA, so just sitting around watching YouTube and CCTV. Mr. Doldwolf, well, welcome. I don't think I've seen you here before. Is that like a sergeant's chevrons on? For us, those would be upside down chevrons, but that's like a sergeant or corporal chevrons that you have there. But welcome, Mr. Doldwolf. Mr. Dolf DeWolf. Sorry if I mispronounced that. Yeah, watching CCTV. No doubt if you're in South Africa, you're watching CCTV to make sure that your property is not being invaded. Absolutely. Nicholas loves it. Yes, the screen looks good. Okay, good. Neighborhood Watch. Oh, okay, you're on Neighborhood Watch. In South Africa? Or, well, with a name like that, I would guess South Africa. And two clues. De Wolf and Neighborhood Watch. My guess would be South Africa. Where are you at? Let's see. Let's see if he'll tell us. Is he in Zambia? He's not in Zambia. Is he in the U.S.? Not likely. Anyway, so yeah, that's the one thing about this lockdown. I guess we were trying to prove or discover if we could actually break the internet. I'm sure it can be broken, but from a user standpoint and data saturation and consumption, with so many people on social media full time, YouTube, Facebook, and streaming Netflix and Hulu and things like that. Yes, South Africa. Okay. Doc Breaker says, is that driving through Olifant's Neck? Yeah, I think that's what it's called there, Doc Breaker. I think you're right. Yep. It's beautiful, that stretch. You on the right, you've got that hill, and you go up, you drive up. In the left, you have another hill, you just go through that gap, and you come down on the right-hand side, you have the Waterfalls shopping mall. It's located to the right. You take the left and go into Rustenburg. Exactly right. If you take the right and go on the road that goes into Rustenburg, but you go south instead of north, you go south, you drive into the Mahalisburg. So that's where it's at. I think that's called Olifant's Neck, if I'm not mistaken. ZA. Yep, you're in South Africa. Thank you, Mr. De Wolf. I love that spot. Here, let me move my picture around a little bit so you guys can get a little better view of it there. There you go. Yeah, I'll leave it off for about a minute or two. But yeah, I took this picture a couple of years ago. I didn't stop. So I held my phone up and took a snap. Of course, in South Africa, you guys drive on the wrong side of the car, the right side. So on the right side of the car, I took this photograph because the window was down. Anyway, so there you go. That's put myself back on there. Yeah, so that's the Mahalisburg. Yeah, really beautiful area. I love the Mahalisburg. So if anyone ever been to the Cradle or the Cradle of Mankind or Humankind, something like that, what it's called there, where they've dug up all the ancient hominids in Sterkfontein Cave and such. Really amazing. I've done quad biking in the Mahalisburg. I've also done the zip lining, the canopy tours, when you slide across. That's pretty cool. I've never done the hot air ballooning because it's just too expensive. Maybe one day I'll do that. But the Mahalisburg is quite an amazing area. And geologically, it's among the oldest spots on the planet. Really fascinating, amazing area. Lots to do horseback riding in the Mahalisburg. And it's very close to Pretoria and Joburg. Of course, it's close to Rustenburg because Rustenburg's right at the foot of it. But it's quite an easy place to get to and a lot to do. Pretty interesting stuff if you go out there. Absolutely beautiful. Yeah, Arnold, very stunning topography. Really neat stuff. The canopy tour is really interesting. I didn't know that it would be as cool as it was. I enjoyed that. A lot of fun. But yeah, so that's the Mahalisburg. I don't know if people saw this the other day, but let me put this one up if I've still got it here. Here we go. So this is a photograph of one of the walls in my office at the Army War College before I retired. It's from July of last year. And, Nicholas, congrats on cracking the 500 subs. Great to watch your channel grow. Well, thank you, Nicholas. Yeah, I broke the 500 last night, or early, was it last night or early this morning? No, this is last night. So when I appeared on Ronaldo Ho's program, I had 331 subscribers. And then yesterday, and after we finished, I gained 135 subscribers. Took me up to 486 it was. And then the evening ended. A couple people popped in after night. And then early today, I went over 500. And I even looked, but you guys can see the screen. I can't because I'm using my software. But last I looked, I was at 516. So yeah, kind of cool. Yeah, the thing about, of course, the subscribers, though, folks, and I think you all appreciate this, is that it's not the number of subscribers, although that matters. We care about that. The more subscribers, the more opportunity for people to get notified and pop in and check your prepared videos and your live streams and listen to the content and comment and contribute to the discourse. But the real issue here is the loyalty or the following of those who subscribe to you. And while I've just achieved 500, I have to say that some of you guys have been really devout followers of the channel, and I really, truly am humbled and appreciate that you want to follow and listen to my stuff. I mean, I'm not South African. Why would you listen to me? For those of you in the States, I am American, so maybe you should listen to me. No, just kidding. But I have people from all over the world that are following the stream now, the live streams, and I think if people disagree or you think I'm wrong about this, but I think that people like the approach I'm taking. The prepared videos, which I tend to keep at 10 minutes or less. Occasionally I go to 20 minutes, depending on the complexity of the topic. I think those are somewhat popular, if not very popular. And then the scheduled live stream on Saturday, which I've done now 3 times. There was a break between the first, second, third time, but the second, third time were week to week. So every Saturday I'm doing those now. And I have a guest come on for that. So those have proven to be popular. And then the Stray Voltage, which it turned out to me to be surprisingly popular. I didn't know how to approach this or how to do it, but I'm really glad that people enjoyed it. So if you guys like this, Arnold loves the background. Well, thank you. That's my photograph, so I took it. But yeah, it's just kind of the approach I'm taking, and that's what I'm doing for now. And just trying to keep people engaged and see who wants to listen to it. Now, I think that maybe there might be a little bit of artificiality involved here because we have the Wuhan coronavirus COVID-19 lockdown. And so some people are inmates in their homes and looking for things to do, and maybe that's contributing. But if that's the reason some people are watching, that's fine. I have no objection to that. Happy to discuss these topics of interest, mutual interest to all of us. So let's see. Doc Breaker says, went horse riding, you typo there, horse riding across that section the whole weekend camping. Yeah, it is. Oh, it's stunning, isn't it? Really, really cool. Oh, you fixed it with the riding there. Nicholas is correct. Second oldest geological place next to somewhere in Australia. That's right. That's right. I was going to say Australia because the oldest spot on the planet, the rocks that's been identified by humans, is in Australia, and the Mahalisberg is the second oldest. It's also amongst the oldest places in Africa where we find hominids, and they found some truly amazing remains there. The Naledi, Homo naledi, is a fantastic story about what happened there. That discovery just a couple years ago. And if you follow the video footage and watch the documentary of how that they got those folks out of there, the remains, they had to come up with women who had, because of their smaller frames, could get into the narrow spaces to get down there. Men couldn't fit. It was fascinating stuff. Yep. And so I have been underground, not in that exact spot, but just adjacent to it, next to the Sterkfontein. It's amazing stuff, folks. You got to get out there and check it out. Really cool museum there as well. Arnold says, I remember when I used to work in Silver Lakes, a suburb east of Pretoria. I'm not familiar with it. Our company was situated about 2 kilometers from where Oscar Pistorius killed his girlfriend. Yeah, Oscar Pistorius, not a poster child for South Africa. Yes, yes, the Blade Runner, as they called him. Absolutely. The guy who competed in the Paralympics and the Olympics with his blades. At least I think he competed in the Olympics. That was supposed to be the deal. Yeah, Oscar Pistorius. Not many people talk about him. Is he still locked up? Is he in prison? I haven't heard anything about him lately. And that's fine. Arnold, totally agree. Chris's knowledge is second to none. He's forgotten more than ever. Oh, thank you, Nicholas. It's very kind of you. It's very kind of you. I appreciate it. Have to agree with you. Doc Breaker says, yeah, the area falls in the Greenbelt section based on the volcanic bubbles found in the rock samples. Yeah, cool beans. Well, the whole area, I mean, I'm not a geologist, but if you look at the whole area geologically in the Midrand and up to the Mahalisberg, I mean, you've got the diamond pipes just a little bit to the side of that. In Kimberley, you've got the gold in the gold reef there in the Midrand, and then you have the platinum belt. I mean, just fascinating geological stuff. I mean, kind of geeky there, but it's been a livelihood for a lot of people for a long time. So, but all that aside, quad bikes, horseback riding, hot air ballooning, zip lining with the canopy tours, camping. Yeah, Mahalisberg rocks, man. It really rocks. Cool place. And a relatively close commute for me when I was in Gaborone. It's a short distance to get to the Mahalisberg. It takes about 3 hours to get down there to get into the Mahalisberg. I mean, you can get to it in less than 3 hours, but you got to get inside. So it takes about 3 hours. Lots to do. Anyway, nice place to stop and enjoy yourself and take your family out there. So I recommend it to folks. Those who are in Botswana, who've never been to the Mahalisberg and maybe just drive past it on the way to Joburg and Pretoria all the time, you should check out the Mahalisberg. It's a really interesting place. Rising Star Cave, yeah, and the Cradle of Mankind. That's it, Cradle of Mankind. Amateur enthusiast in paleontology. Yeah, I'm with you, Nicholas. I'm an anthropologist in some respects based on my graduate work, and paleontology also interests me as well. I have a hard time remembering all the names of the classifications of hominids that have been found over the years. Also, I'm a huge interest in Neanderthals and what happens there, or what happened to them. Arnold says, I hear of many people who want to leave SA for all the happenings here, but honestly, this country is really a beautiful place, and the grass is... Well, you're right about that, Arnold. And you find an awful lot of South Africans, initially Afrikaners, but subsequently Afrikaans-speaking coloreds, and also these days more and more black South Africans and even Asians, Indians, who have thought that they could go elsewhere and the grass is greener. And if you follow some of the documentaries and follow some of the writings about South Africans in New Zealand's a wonderful place, but Afrikaners arrive there or South Africans arrive there and it's not South Africa. Okay? First off, you got to deal with the fact that they have the All Blacks. That's almost a deal breaker, okay? That's a tough one to swallow. But if you can get past the fact that they have the All Blacks, it's not South Africa. it's a lovely place, but it's not South Africa, and the grass isn't always greener. Now, it's certainly a lot safer to live in New Zealand, but economic opportunity is far more limited. It's a tiny country with a very small population, just a little over 4 million people, remotely isolated from the rest of the world. And it takes a long time to get anywhere. Now, Australia is relatively close, and Australia and New Zealand have this love-hate relationship where they're like kissing cousins, arguing all the time. So you can get to Australia. So a lot of the Kiwis go back and forth to Australia, and Aussies come over back and forth. So you get that, but really, it's at the end of the world. It's not that far from Antarctica. And also a lot of South Africans who've gone to Australia, some of them are disillusioned or not as entirely thrilled as they thought they might be. So, because it's not South Africa. You can replicate some of the things and take them with you, but it's not South Africa. And South Africa is a really neat place, whether you're South African or not. Let's see what else. Yes, still in prison. The Bushveld is breathtaking, especially in a place called Taba Zimbi. Where are we talking about Taba Zimbi? Are we talking about South Africa? Mark says, great area for metal detecting too. The British had many blockhouses on top of the mountains. Oh, okay. Interesting. I'm not into metal detecting, but I certainly I appreciate that, and I've seen that hobby. Some people really love to do that. You find that a lot here in the States. Nicholas says the All Blacks and ground bird, cockapoo and kiwi, but they are on the dodgy Ring of Fire. Well, there you go, Nicholas, and that's the bottom line. So New Zealand is on the Ring of Fire. This thing goes all the way across the Pacific there and runs up through Japan, over to Alaska, and then down to Peru. On the west coast, runs along California, all the way down the Ring of Fire. Yep, the tectonic activity there is quite a danger and quite a challenge. If you remember back to the World Cup in 2011, just before the World Cup, we had the earthquakes in Christchurch, and Christchurch was devastated. Christchurch was supposed to be one of the cities where we had the World Cup. I think as a consequence, Nelson was probably picked to replace it for a couple of games. I'm not sure, but I did go to a game in Nelson, which is on the north of the South Island, but on the very northern tip, a very small town, beautiful place. I watched the U.S. play Italy there, but I flew with Air New Zealand down there, left my rental hire car at the airport, flew down for the game, stayed overnight, then went back to Auckland. But Christchurch was supposed to be hosting games, and as a consequence of the earthquake, the devastating earthquake that they had, because they're on the Ring of Fire, they couldn't host the games. And so that had a major impact on the 2011 Rugby World Cup, at least in Christchurch, but not the rest of the country, fortunately. So Doc Berger says, I don't mind the All Blacks. In fact, they are my second choice, but doesn't it feel like their union is trying to monopolize the sport? They're trying to get SA kicked out and introduce Japan. Absolutely correct. And now we find out from the Guardian report that the New Zealand Rugby Union is in discussion with a fantastically well-capitalized American company to take the sport elsewhere and for them to leave World Rugby. Can you imagine New Zealand not part of World Rugby, the International Rugby Board? Wow. If that were to happen, all bets are off. I certainly hope they don't do that, even as little as I like the All Blacks. I don't want to see that thing happen. We will see what happens. Yep. Ice says, I would 100% adopt my new country's people culture. I can teach people some cultural stuff from South Africa, sure, but I won't be a bitter... Oh, no, Ice, I'm not implying that everyone is bitter. I'm just saying that some people are bitter about that and they're uncomfortable with it. So, they're not bitter, but the point is, I think the point that was it Arnold or maybe it was Mark, somebody was saying that I think the point here is that people often look at the challenges around them and they think that, well, if I could only live in Ireland, Ireland's an amazing place. Well, I've been to Ireland. It is an amazing place, but it's also small. You get cabin fever. The economic opportunities aren't there to make lots of money or to be successful in fields that you may have an opportunity to be successful elsewhere. So the grass may always be greener. And while I love South Africa, it's not the United States. But then I'm a world traveler and a world resident, so I wind up being comfortable wherever I'm at. I find a way to be comfortable. But that doesn't mean I don't long for things that I can't get access to. Like right now, I could kill for some biltong. Some good quality biltong, whether it's from Botswana or from South Africa. And I also love those Energade drinks that you have in South Africa, especially the blue ones or the grape ones. Good stuff. Good stuff. I don't really care for Gatorade, but I love Energade. And I wouldn't mind right now at this moment having a Roman's pizza. That would be so tasty right now. I could even go for some Nando's, and I'm not a big Nando's fan. Now, on the upside, we have Nando's in the U.S. It's just it's nowhere near here. You have to go to D.C. for that. Or Maryland. But so you miss certain things, and when I'm not in the States, I miss some of the things that I can get here, the easy access and the availability of things. And certain things that I enjoy, certain meals and such. But yeah, you adapt. Some people find it hard though, and it's challenging for them, and they're not particularly comfortable in the new location. And that's just the nature of immigration. I mean, that's just the way it works for some people. They don't get comfortable in their new home. But yeah, I appreciate what you're saying, Ice, that you would adapt the culture of the place you go. And that's one of the successes of America until the last couple of decades, in which the leftists have attempted to destroy our country by bifurcating it, by insisting on making this a bilingual country. Now, I always like to have that argument or fight about bilingualism or about multi languages because I'm a polyglot. I speak 6 languages. So it used to be I was at the Defense Intelligence Agency or working in D.C., and I'd rock up and people having a discussion at lunch. I come back from exercising. They'd be talking about English as a national language, and I jump into conversation. Yeah, of course, English should be our national language. Oh, you just don't like Mexicans. Excuse me? Who said anything about Mexicans? Well, you're just a typical American. You're too lazy to learn a language. Actually, I speak 6 languages. Well, they're probably just Romance European languages. Actually, I speak 3 African languages. When they run out of things to call you and excuses or names or moral equivalency to undermine your position, if they're still willing to have a conversation, then you can have a conversation, which had been the case several times. And so at that point, I say that the reason that English should be our national language is that it's embarrassing as the only industrialized first world country not to have a national language is the United States. And if we don't have a national language, we risk destroying this country, separating people on the basis of language. I advocate people learning a 2nd, 3rd, or 4th language. I'm all in favor of that. And those things should be available for kids to learn in school, even in primary school. I'm all for that. But people who come to this country must accept English, learn English, and make it part of their lives. We have a bizarre situation in California where they experimented for a long period of time with forcing schools to teach children in their indigenous language. By indigenous language, I mean if their parents were recent immigrants, even if they were born in America, they were taught in the language of their parents. So Koreans or Iranians or Filipinos who came to California, their children, even if they were born in the United States, were taught in public schools in Tagalog or in Farsi or in Korean. Now, the problem with that, of course, is that it's difficult to find qualified science, chemistry, mathematics teachers who are fluent in Farsi or Tagalog or Korean and live in California and are qualified in the language and in those subjects. So what do we get? We get children born in America who go through a school paid for by taxpayers learning a foreign language as their primary language of instruction and English as a second language. So as a consequence, we have high school graduates, American-born citizens by birth, going to American public schools in which California taxpayers are paying for, and they speak English worse than Africans who learn English as a second language or take it as a first language. Now, that's shocking, but a true story. So English should be our national language. And you get called a bigot, a racist, and all kinds of things. But that's by people who are just the bigots themselves and don't take the time to think through the implications of not using the language. It doesn't mean I'm against learning other languages. Otherwise, I wouldn't learn the other 5 languages. It would have been a waste of my time. I'm all for it. But English is our language, and we should protect it. But instead, we've got people on the progressive side of the political aisle in this country pushing language and telling us that we're bigots and racist if we don't learn Spanish. Well, screw Spanish. I'm not learning Spanish because you jerks try to push it on me. I'll learn Farsi before I learn Spanish. Not interested. Besides, it's so close to Latin and French, I can understand half what they're saying anyway. So why should I learn it? Ooh. Whoa. No, you're the bigot. No, I'm not a bigot. I have an issue with people who speak Spanish. They're welcome to speak Spanish. People are welcome to speak Tagalog. But if you want to function in this society, you want to be a citizen of this country or a permanent resident, you need to learn English. People shouldn't have to guess what is being said when they go someplace. Now, that doesn't mean I expect a recent immigrant to be fluent in language. It takes time. You're welcome to learn it. The reason that I learned Swana, the reason I learned Swahili, the reason I became familiar with and learned Afrikaans is because I went to those places. The reason I learned German is because I lived there for a third of my adult life. I took the time to learn it. The reason I understand Italian, I don't speak it, but I understand it, is because I lived in Italy. I don't expect everyone to do that, but I certainly tried, along the same line as ICE is talking about here. If you live in a place, you want to learn its culture, you want to learn its language. Absolutely. It's a good idea. It's a good idea. So, let's see. Nicholas says, yeah, the stadium collapse and a few deaths. Yeah, New Zealand, that's the 2011, the Christchurch situation. Really sad. My new name, welcome. Some aren't bitter, but they're still holiday visit South Africa on a yearly basis. Yeah, that's fine. I mean, if you immigrate somewhere, there's no reason you can't go back to your homeland. I mean, that's the place of your birth, your origin, your ancestors coming from there. Absolutely, it's part of who you are. You can be part of two countries. Our immigrants are welcome to do that. But if you are a Mexican immigrant and you carry the Mexican flag and don't carry the American flag in America at official ceremonies, then you may not be so welcome. If you're adopting this country, then you adopt this country. That doesn't mean you can't go to a soccer game and wave a Mexican flag. Nothing wrong with that whatsoever. If the German team comes here and someone who's of German descent in America wants, or someone who's just a fan of the German team wants to wave a German flag, cool. Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. Let's see. Ice says, yes, I agree. Some are bitter or long to go. Okay. Or long to go to say only remember the good stuff and forget why they left in the first place. They tend to forget the push factors until they visit us. Yeah, till they drive out of OR Tambo where they have fake police pull them over and try to rob them. Yeah, then they remember why they left. Nicholas says, my neighbor across the road, son-in-law. Well, okay, now this is my neighbor's sons, brothers, sisters, aunts, uncle, cousins, nephew, girlfriends, lovers. Okay, hang on. So Nicholas says, my neighbor across the road's son-in-law and daughter emigrated to New Zealand. Okay, had their first bride within a week, and they have a good life, but I say it's hard and not bitter. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, no, I wasn't implying that everyone's bitter. It's just some people aren't happy with, the grass is always greener. I was echoing a comment that was said there. It's true. So I find it somewhat weird how a number of South Africans look to find a group of South Africans to try and somehow preserve their culture. Maybe they're no, that's not weird at all. That's just a natural tendency. I mean, look at immigration. So the U.S. is a good case in this. We have massive numbers of people coming from certain areas. You look at immigration here in the late 19th century, early 20th century, and what you see is lots of Italians coming in this country. And what do? They settle in New York and New Jersey. And where do they settle? Next to Italians who speak Italian. So it eases the burden of becoming acclimated. They're also Catholics, so they go to the same church and worship in the same place. Some of them are even related, distant cousins or such, depending where they come from. And there's a natural affinity. It's kind of like you go to the World Cup, even though I'm South African, the South Africans see me wearing South African clothes. Boca, 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 hey, bro. And they want to come over and start speaking Afrikaans to me. Praat nie Afrikaans nie. No, nothing against Afrikaans. I love it, but I just can't keep up, guys, especially when they drink. Anyway, but my point is that there's a natural affinity. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you move to a new place, you do have to adopt its customs, its mores. So, for instance, if you're coming from Nigeria or Yemen or Somalia or Djibouti, and your child is born in America, or you immigrate here and you bring children with you, and your 11-year-old daughter, it's time for the rite of passage when you slice her clitoris off with female genital mutilation. No, not acceptable. Not an acceptable cultural norm in this society. If you want to slice the clitoris off your prepubescent child, you need to live elsewhere. That's right, I'm moralizing. Come on, bring it on. Tell me I'm wrong. We'll have a conversation about this. It's a human rights violation. It's a barbaric practice. Yeah, I'm moralizing, that's right. Notice I didn't say anything about Islam because it's not Islamic practice. That's how the left and the media and the academics portray it as Islamic. It's nothing to do with Islam. It's a cultural practice, and it's done by Christians and Muslims. No, thank you. Not acceptable in this society. If that's your cultural norm, take it elsewhere. What about honor killings? No, not acceptable. That's murder. How do you murder your own child because you're embarrassed? Take that stuff elsewhere. Sick. Get out. Not welcome. Ooh, here's the bigot. No, I'm not a bigot. Just care about universal human rights. The right to life, the right to express yourself, the right to liberty, and the right not to be harmed by others, particularly loved ones. Anyway, I'm moralizing now, so I'll get off that soapbox. Arnold asks, are the KFCs and McDonald's open there? Yes, they are. But here in Pennsylvania, in the lockdown counties, it's takeaway only. So it's funny when you go out. I was out earlier trying to get a freezer. They're all gone, of course. I hadn't bought a freezer. I was planning on buying a freezer at this stage after I retired. But I didn't buy one in the midst of the panic because I fear there are people who truly need one more than I do. I just wanted it for convenience. So I went out today. I had to do a number of things, so I thought I'd go try to get a freezer. Home Depot, nope. Lowe's, nope. Best Buy, nope. Nothing. And of course, some are assembled here in America, but the parts come from Asia, and the Chinese aren't working despite their lies about COVID-19. Their factories are shut down for the most part, so we can't get the parts here to make them. So there's a backlog. as people panicked and bought all the freezers up. But yeah, so coming back, I drove by Wendy's and I drove by McDonald's and some other places. Now the sit-down restaurants they're screwed because they're not open. They can't take customers. They can only do takeaway, and most people don't get takeaway from the sit-down restaurants. It's only the fast food places. So the fast food places are still in business. They're still got people. I don't know how they're doing from a bottom line standpoint, but the times I've been out, the few times I've been out over the past couple months, I've repeatedly seen long queues of vehicles burning gasoline, producing carbon dioxide, damaging the environment. Where's the left? Silence from the left. Ecologist, environmental warriors, where are you? Yeah, as they sit in the takeaway, waiting with their cars to pick up their orders. Yeah, so they're doing business. I don't know how well they're doing here, but they are in business. Nicholas says, I came from England in 1982, never been back, to be honest, don't want to. Well, Nicholas, I can understand that dreary, wet place where there's almost no English left. England. Sorry, I'm just teasing. Well, London, there's almost no English. Each time I go back to London, it looks much more like Riyadh than it does London. But I guess that's London, so I mean, I guess that's not a fair statement on my part, but don't expect it to have the cultural appearance of Riyadh. But yeah, the English becoming a minority in their major cities. Leicester has a minority English population. They're just one group of many ethnic groups in Leicester. That's a true story. There are more migrants to Leicester, recent migrants, than English or those of Viking origin. So let's see what else. 82, that's a long time ago, man. So my new name says, some have trouble driving around there for the first few days, but fit in soon enough, learning to dodge the bullets again. Dodge the bullets where? In New Zealand? Or South Africa? Ice says, I would probably steer clear of many overseas South Africans, especially the ones that try and live in a pre-94 South African tribes overseas. Salt number. Yeah, you get that sort of thing. But that will disappear over time, I think, Ice, that people that pine, no matter what their ethnic origins, they pine for the pre-94 days. Yeah, we'll see that go away, I think. Putting them in their place, especially in the UK and New Zealand, even a little bit in the US. Sean says, I miss Arby's. Yeah, hey, Sean. Oh, why'd you do that? I haven't eaten today. I haven't had anything to eat. Seriously. And you mentioned Arby's. Arby's, America's roast beef. Yes, sir. Those were the adverts back in the 1980s. I'll never forget that. Somehow I'm way behind here. Gosh, you guys are probably growing impatient with me. Gosh, let me get back. How did I get far behind in the chat? Where's the Arby's comment at? Let me find that. It was Sean, wasn't it? Yeah, there's Miss Arby's curly fries. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of the curly fries, but I do love their ham, their turkey, and their roast beef. Good stuff. And we have an Arby's here, and the manager gives me a 25% discount because I was active duty and now I'm a veteran. So it's up to the managers whether they offer a military discount at Arby's. McDonald's doesn't. They're not obliged to, but their food's not that great anyway. Five Guys doesn't give a discount because people stand in line for their food, so they'll never give a discount. But Arby's does give a discount, and it's up to the manager. And sometimes they give you 10%, but this one here in Dillsburg gives me 25%. So whenever I go to a hockey game, if it's late at night and I'm still hungry, I'm stopping at Arby's because it's only about 1 kilometer from my house. Pop off the highway, get some Arby's, tank up, get one of those big chocolate mocha shakes, thick ones where he's like trying to get it out of the cup. It won't come out using a plastic straw. That's right, a plastic straw. And then I enjoy my food and come back to the house and eat it because it's just a few minutes away. But Arby's, good stuff. Also like Rax. Most people don't know about Rax, but Rax is a roast beef place too with a similar sort of menu, also with burgers, but roast beef is the main thing. That was an Ohio business. They're still in business, but they were much bigger when I was younger, but they're in Ohio. So Arby's, Nicholas says, what do the indigenous Indians have? One language? Oh, no. The Native Americans here in the U.S. have lots of languages. There's Cherokee, there's Navajo, there's Sioux. There's lots of different languages, and many of them are mutually unintelligible. You can't. It's not like Spanish and Portuguese. They're very different. Now there's dozens, if not hundreds, of indigenous languages here in America, especially if you include Alaska, which is part of the U.S. Yep, lots of languages. English is, after all, universal language. Indeed, it is the language of aviation, language of science, language of trade. Yeah, it's international language. And apparently, if you watch Star Trek, it's the language of the universe. All these planets where they all speak English. Oh, that's right. They have the universal translator embedded in their head, so that's what it is. Let's see. Navajo, Anasazi, Mohican. Yeah, exactly. It should be Afrikaans, youngest language in the world. Afrikaans is a young language. That's true. It is and will always be a beautiful language. It's a spin-off from Dutch. Yes, that's true, Arnold. But it also has a lot of influence from Indonesia, from the Dutch East Indies, and also from African languages as well. And these days, English is also intruding into the Afrikaans space. It's funny, when I was listening to Giselle in the concert, she was saying something in Afrikaans, Afrikaans, Afrikaans. All I can say, Afrikaans, Afrikaans. Wait a second. I heard all I can say in the middle of that paragraph. It was all Afrikaans. Pretty funny. Germans the same way. The Germans, I was in Germany listening to a traffic report a couple years ago when I went there on a trip. And it was something like this. Auf der A8 zwischen Stuttgart und Pforzheim, 8 Kilometer stop-and-go traffic zwischen die... what? Excuse me? The A8 between Stuttgart and Pforzheim. Stop and go is not German. That's English. But the Germans, the younger Germans like to throw their English phrases in there. So it happens a lot. English is very influential, whether people want to accept that or not. That's just a reality. That's just a consequence of how the world has developed. So Flemish seems to be closer than... yeah, Flemish. Okay. Doc Baker says, what I like about Afrikaans, you don't have to use swear words when threatening someone. Send a very stern, slow tone. Luister nou mooi vir my. Yeah, well, in German, you call people, animals. That's the insult. You don't use the F word. You don't say F you. You say, du alte Esel, you old donkey. And it's fighting words, man. Yep. Yeah. It's funny how languages. That's one of the reasons why I like to learn languages and or at least become familiar with them, because the way people express themselves is different from one language to another. Ice says, yeah, some South Africans that move overseas expect to live in mini South Africa when they're in a new country instead of adapting. Yeah, it happens. That's okay, though. As long as you're not isolating. And that's in Africa. You have Chinese who migrated to Africa for decades, and then they live in these little communities. They don't interact with Africans. They don't intermarry with Africans. They don't contribute anything. They expatriate their earnings back to China. They buy all the little Chinese stuff and stay among the Chinese. Now, that's changing in Africa, especially in the last decade. And it will change more as you see more Chinese integrate with others in Africa. But for the longest period, last 30, 40 years, the Chinese are little enclaves. They're recreating little China. And one reason why there's xenophobia against them is people are afraid of them or don't know what to expect or are angry that they're not part of society. But like many things, that changes over time. If you look here in the U.S., you look at second, third generations of immigrants whose first language was Spanish up until recently, which now the political left is trying to disrupt this natural assimilation and acculturation. Up until recently, Spanish-speaking immigrants who came here in the first generation were already speaking English. By the second generation, they were all speaking English. And Spanish was a secondary language, not the primary language. We have people now pushing an artificial political agenda to make it so that people can come to this country and spend 3 or 4 generations not assimilating and speaking Spanish and expecting the rest of us to learn their language when they came to our country. Yeah, anyway. Now, recognize, of course, that there are old Spanish-speaking communities in the United States that predate the creation of the United States. So before I get called a bigot, let's point that out. Texas, San Antonio, other parts of Texas, in New Mexico, old Spanish families been there for 400 years, and Southern California and Central California as well. So people who've been here a long time speaking Spanish, that's not who I'm talking about. I'm talking about immigrants who come here whose first language is Spanish and who refuse to attempt to learn English because it's too easy not to learn English because politicians have made it easy in certain localities. So for instance, the state of Maryland, I came back from a trip many years ago when I was working in the National Security Agency, and I went to the airport at the Baltimore Washington International Airport, BWI. And I really had to go to the loo because I'd been on the plane and I had a full bladder. My bladder warning light was lit and it was time to relieve. So I rushed through the airport, down the steps, and that's where the toilet was on the right-hand side. And I walked up to go to the door, and they had taken the signs down for men and women because they were painting the doors. They put a temporary sign up, and it said baños, hermanos. Okay. At the time that this happened, less than 2% of the population of the state of Maryland, which was about 7 million, spoke Spanish to any degree of proficiency, including illegal aliens and legal migrants, and those who studied Spanish in high school, which a lot of people do. Less than 2% spoke to any degree of proficiency. Yet nearly 4% of the state of Maryland spoke Russian or Ukrainian, which are very similar languages. So where are the signs in Russian and Ukrainian? Now that's a consequence of 19th century Russian and Russian Jew immigration into Baltimore and Maryland. And then again in the 1990s, a lot of Russians came to Maryland because they had ties and they immigrated there. So as a consequence, we had a little bit under 4% of the state of Maryland that could speak Russian to some degree of proficiency. Why aren't there signs up in Russian? Why are they in Spanish? When the Spanish are only half as many as the Russian speakers. That's an intentional political agenda meant to divide a country, and that's the issue I have with it. So, in upstate New York, you pass through Native American reservations and you see signs in their native language. That's fine, absolutely fine. They've been speaking that language for thousands of years. They're here, they're welcome to speak it. But those people also speak English and can function in English. There you go. All right, so always be a South African, but completely want to integrate into the U.S. like all people. Nicholas says, went through school and just passed Afrikaans as a second language. I learned so bloody quickly in the Army. I was averse. Okay, Nicholas, yeah. Yeah, there's not much of a pull factor for you being forced to learn as an English speaker in school. But when you're in the Army, because all the instructions are given Afrikaans, you don't want to, yeah, that's the old South African Defense Force. You don't want to be beaten. Now, I got you, Nicholas. Yeah, I've seen videos of the basic training, indoctrination, breaking down of recruits for the South African Defense Force, and ouch, I'm glad I wasn't in the SADF or the Russian military for that matter. Those guys are really, really bad. Even to this day, they are. Yep. Anyway, Dogbreaker, it's like laughing out loud. Yeah, the tribal way of life. Whoops. Afrikaans very expressive. Yep. I learned all the vulgarisms first. Maybe it's true for all languages. Well, Nicholas, you learn the vulgarisms or you learn how to meet the opposite sex. The phrases you need for that. That's usually a big draw for people. So Nicholas doesn't learn mostly vulgarity. Okay. Damn, sounds like I missed out not having been to an Arby's. Yeah, no, Arby's is good. It's tasty. You should try it next time you hear ice. But Five Guys I would recommend first. Five Guys is like crack cocaine. Oh my God! If you've never been to Five Guys, they know how to make burgers, and they're very simple. They sell hot dogs, but they sell burgers, and they sell fries and milkshakes, and that's pretty much it. They have a very limited menu, a little bit pricey for a fast food place, but very, very, very tasty. Yeah, 25% is a great discount, and the food's good too. I mean, it's probably not the healthiest, probably get some coronary disease out of it, but Arby's food is really tasty. Yeah, and 25% is a great discount. So yeah. Doc Perry says, Arby's reminds me of Uncle Charlie's just outside Johannesburg. As you enter the district, it's true that the word roadhouse is a bad connection. Oh, the word roadhouse is a bad connection, yes. Well, yes and no. It has a bad connection from a standpoint that traditionally a roadhouse is affiliated with a bar where nefarious things happen or people get rowdy and fights break out and that sort of thing, kind of a hick bar. But we have something called Logan's Roadhouse or the Texas, these are restaurant chains, and they're called roadhouses, and they're kind of in the style of a roadhouse where they play like country music in the restaurant, but they're not places people get in fights. They're proper restaurants, sit-down restaurants. So it's that negative connotation has worn off a bit in the last decade or so from what it used to be. Not really the same. Arnold says, just a thought, if the ANC decide to put certain metropolises back to level 5 due to increasing numbers, all institutions that were able to open level 4 would have to close. Yeah, no, that's a good point there. The other issue with that is how are they really going to regulate this? It's confusing to people. So are you going to position police at the boundary of where you can be in level 4 and where you can be in level 5? I mean, if you say something like, well, KZN is at level 4, but Pretoria or Gauteng is at level 5, that's much more easier to manage. But if you say the Johannesburg metro area is at level 5 and Bloemfontein is at level 4, where is the boundary? You're going to have to put people out there. Otherwise, you're going to have people getting arrested like this poor little child being harassed by public health officials walking on a sidewalk. It's just insane what's going on there. What have I missed here? Mr. Dolph de Wolf says, best one from Afghanistan. Garco's stuck in traffic. Cool. Yes. Nicholas says, is there a state difference between California and Baja? Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, Baja California is part of Mexico. It's much lower in population and natural resources and much more desert and climate and environment than the rest of what is California. It's just called Baja California because the whole area was California when it was under Spanish rule. So Baja California was that long peninsula that comes down from the U.S.-Mexican border, and then California proper was above that. So Baja California is just a region of Mexico. So that's the difference there. The French Foreign Legion does the same. Everything is in French, so one is better to learn quickly. Absolutely right. Yep. Haven't been to Five Guys either. Ice, you have missed out on the fast food experiences here in America. I really feel bad for you, my friend. You might be better off having not had the fast food experiences. But what about Texas? What's Texas? Gosh, I can't think of it. And then, but Logan's Roadhouse. Logan's is fantastic. Really good stuff. Arnold says, "You're so correct about the Army breaking us as troops down." Remember, well, that's the deal, Arnold. I mean, those of us who served, those who've been in basic training, we understand what the military does is they break you down, they tear you apart. I mean, they don't destroy you, but they tear your identity apart to when you're just one other cog as part of a team, and you have to function as a team. You have to learn to adapt, and then they rebuild you, and you still retain yourself, but now you're something else as well. And in the South African Defense Force, that was done in part with Afrikaans, and it was successful. So you had a lot of English speakers who speak Afrikaans as a consequence of their military service, and less so because they were forced to learn it as the second language in school, as we saw from Nicholas. Lucy Lockett, well, welcome there. Welcome aboard. I think it's your first comment. Glad to have you here. If you've been quietly listening in the background, you've been very stealthful. Do you have an intelligence background, I wonder? Did you see the clip in South Africa today where the government officials traumatized? Yeah, we've been talking about that. Wait. 6-year-old arrested the father for going into... No, not for a 6-year-old. That's well, is that the one that Ronaldo hosted, the video there, that the Bottice or whatever it's called? Yeah, I did see that. I didn't know that was the beach, though. It was hard to tell from that. Yeah, I saw that. It's just shameful conduct. Unbelievable. And now that child has been traumatized, and that will stick with that child. This is not something that will be forgotten. And why? What is the arrogant, pompous behavior that's going on that makes these officials think they can behave in that fashion? Hey, listen, folks, we're 2 hours and 36 minutes into the stream. I'm enjoying it. We got people coming into the stream now, so I'm not going to go away. But if the red ants strike again and cut my cable, I won't come back on. I'll drop off and get some food since I haven't eaten today. So I'm just saying that now, not running away, but if we get cut off, that will be the stream for tonight. And I thank everyone profusely for joining me. Those who subscribed recently, thank you so much for joining, whether you came here because Ronaldo told you to, or because you came here on your own volition, or you just came across my channel and said, this might be interesting. I'm going to watch this. Anyway, I appreciate it. Thank you so much. This is only useful if we all get something out of it, so I appreciate those who subscribe. But I'm not going away. I'll get back to the question there about the child. But I just want to say if the red ants strike and we lose my connection, which does happen sometimes, then that'll be it for the evening. Right, so back to her question. Lucy said, yeah, I did see the video. I didn't watch the whole thing because it was very disturbing. Ronaldo Hose did the video and did a commentary on it, and I watched part of it. And then I took a break because I went to watch Germ Warfare's live stream. He had a guest that was interesting on there. Very disturbing. But I mean, some of the things are happening here in the States with authorities pushing their weight around and arresting people. We had a situation which the salon owner in Dallas, Texas was arrested because she reopened her business. Her business, she owns it, and she got some of the relief money from the government to help her tide her business over. But her employees are all contractors. They're not her employees. She lets contractors come in who do hair and nails. They work in the salon. And none of them can qualify for the business relief because they're independent contractors. They're not businesses. So they're screwed. And a lot of them have been contacting her saying, listen, I'm not eating. I've been feeding my children. I haven't eaten for 3 days. I need to work. So because Governor of Texas, Governor Abbott, was lowering the lockdown restrictions effective this past Friday, the same day that I aired the Giselle concert, shameless promotion. Anyway, she decided to open her salon earlier than that. She did. The authorities came and arrested her. Now, this is after the Dallas officials at least released hundreds or dozens, whatever the number, I don't know, but they released convicted felons, people who convicted of kidnapping and assault and rape and all kinds of violent crimes, released them because it was dangerous for them to be in prison because they could be exposed potentially to COVID-19. So they loosened these hardened criminals back onto the streets, and in most cases, didn't even notify the people who were victims of those who had committed the crimes, put them back on the streets for their health and welfare. Then they arrest a law-abiding, tax-paying business owner, a woman nonetheless, a minority business owner, arrest her, and then cart her off to prison, take her in before the judge, and this pompous, arrogant judge, I saw the footage, so I'm not telling you third hand, I saw this with my own eyes, tells her that she is shameful and that she's selfish because she's jeopardized the health of the community. Never mind the fact that she was following all the guidelines that the CDC and the state of Texas had recommended and imposed on people for social distancing. She was taking temperatures of people before they got in her shop, maintaining distance on the street, cleaning she was doing all these appropriate health safety measures. She was selfish because she wanted to make money. It wasn't about her making money. It was about her feeding her children and about her contract employees being able to raise some revenue from their work so that they can feed their own family and themselves. And he said, I may consider not putting you in jail if you apologize for being selfish. And she said, I'm not apologizing. I didn't do anything wrong. And she was very respectful. It's all recorded. I saw it. And he threw her in jail for 7 days in the place where she could be contracting COVID-19 after they released all the criminals. Now, this criminalization of the behavior of law-abiding citizens is despicable. It's disgusting. It's shameful. What happened to that child? What happened to the couple in the Cape Town area last week in which the child ran off and sat on the beach? The mother came back, picked her up. She was crying. She started nursing her. They're getting ready to leave. And the police come over and arrest them and drag them along with the toddler down to the police station, a police station which the police couldn't be bothered to wear a mask. Now, before we go any further, law enforcement officials the world over, including South Africa, by and large, are doing their job to the best of their ability, oftentimes under conflicting guidance, and there's seldom malicious intent. But there is malicious intent on the part of some actors. Not even in a crisis we see this. The bad apples need to be dealt with, and people should never be treated like they're peasants, like they're serfs. We are governed with our consent, not by decree. And that's what's happening now. And yes, I did see that, Lucy. It's very, very annoying, very disturbing. So Arnold says, yeah, but they do build you up as a team section. Yeah, exactly, Nicholas. The military knows what they're doing. We function as a team. We do. And we retain ourselves. It's not like we're just broken automatons. I am a soldier. A soldat. No. We still function as individuals, but you learn to be part of a bigger culture. And the military is very successful at that. Let's see. So it does make a lot of sense. ICE says, need to visit more better states, more red states. Nevada's pretty great, and the best French toast in the world is an original breakfast in Phoenix. Phoenix, the Valley of Death. Now, they call it the Valley of the Sun, but I've been to Phoenix. I call it the Valley of Death. It is hot in Phoenix. Anyway, Lucy says, I can't believe it either. The neighbor saw the father on the beach and called the cops. I hate people like that. Yeah, Lucy, I'm with you. What's that all about? I mean, can you not just tell people, get off the beach? Even if you're rude, get off the beach. Futsek, go back to your home. Maintain your distance. What's this grabbing a child off the streets? It's not like a child was running around with a freaking loaded firearm endangering the public. Shameful. What I love about technology is that people are capturing this on video with their phones, their mobiles. And so it can be exposed and people the light of day. Let me tell you something. I started this stream earlier talking about this. The ANC is going to have to deal with a phenomenon that has a rebound effect for their conduct and for their execution of governance that they're doing under this lockdown, impoverishing people, treating common, honest, law-abiding citizens as filth and criminals, traumatizing children, things like this. Under apartheid, most of apartheid, only whites could vote. The people you're abusing, the blacks, the coloreds, the Indians, the whites, today, African National Congress, they have the vote. Now, not that child, but his father has the vote. And come the municipal elections of 2021, your actions should be judged for your performance during this crisis. And I hope that people remember that when they vote in 2021 in South Africa. I think that's very important. So Lucy says, funny, I had the same suspicion of Chris special training. Yeah, I'm not going to get into my training. We'll talk about that. Arnold says, these cops are seriously on a power trip. Yeah, some of them are. The red ants haven't got me just going to boil the kettle. Oh, Nicholas, okay. That's fine. Have some coffee or some rooibos tea. Yeah, that's some good stuff. I'd like some rooibos right about now. Also need a coffee refill. In South Africa, you're not BPBEE compliant. You get no help. Yeah, 51% black ownership. People are in a dire situation. Yeah, Lucy, you're absolutely right. We've talked about this. I've done videos on this. Check my channel out if you're. I don't recognize you, haven't been on here before, but check out my videos. I've talked about this. I also talked about. I've got videos like debunking expropriation without compensation, and also debunking this whole. I've got several debunking videos now talking about using the information that these officials throw at us and try to mislead us with, and pointing out the shortcomings and the misleading statements. Yeah. So. And I've also talked about the relief funds that have been made available and how they're discriminating against minority South Africans with the Tourism Relief Fund in particular, but also with the money that's come in the 500 billion rand package. And if you remember when the Department responsible for small and medium enterprises put the questionnaire on their website the first day, and thousands of people downloaded it, it had a question that said, in order to qualify for this, I saw this. Are you a minority? Are you a BE certified majority-owned company? If you're not, you can't get this aid. Well, the minister claimed it was fake news. The problem is it came from her government website. Well, this was an internal document we were just planning. Well, now in reality, what we see is it's all bull because many minority-owned businesses have applied and got no response or been denied assistance from this fund. Yeah, that's not fake news. That's the truth. Yeah, so what's going on there? But this is sad, 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 sad. When the government is focused on the skin color of its citizens, it has problems. The National Party had problems. The ANC is the same way today. They're over-focused on people's skin color. You should worry about whether someone's a law-abiding citizen, regardless of what their ethnicity. This doesn't matter. Your job is to govern all, not my people. Every time I hear Cyril Ramaphosa today say, our people, our people, our people, our people need the land. Well, you're right. Your people do need land, all 57 million of them. Not the Zulu, not the Xhosa, not the Pedi, not the Tswana, not the Afrikaners, all of them. And the Bushmen, the Khoi and the San too, ladies and gentlemen, and the Coloreds. You represent all South Africans, Cyril, not simply the Zulu. Take note of that. Right. So, Dogbreaker, it's like we're all reading off the same script regarding how we're being treated. That means the narrative must have a single point of origin. Yeah. Yeah, right. Well, I'm reading my own narrative here. It's funny because I started watching was it Broken Land, whatever. This is the documentary from AfriForum that people were asking me to watch. And I'm watching it. And I'm like, these guys stole my notes. They obviously didn't. They made this video. I had nothing to do with it. But the points I'm making about expropriation without compensation, most of them, or many of them, are pointed out in exactly the same verbiage and style and fashion that I point them out when I talk about expropriation without compensation and how it's all nonsense. And it's a political narrative meant to divide society, not unify it, and to retain power by dividing the vote of the electorate. Anyway, so they say many of the similar arguments. So it's funny how, but when you learn the facts and you do critical thinking and analysis, oftentimes you come to the same conclusions. So, Lucy, very true. And where there is no support like AfriForum and such, it's even worse. Like those little East Cape towns where you can't really move. Yeah, no, gotcha. We are now on point. Who wrote the script? I have this notion that this would lock down, that this world lockdown is a huge intelligence gathering, ops, drug, human trafficking. Well, it's certainly an opportunity for a lot of illicit people around the world to do their business and make huge profit. Look at all the illegal cigarette traders in South Africa and how much money they're fleecing South Africans for now, and oftentimes providing cigarettes that aren't particularly safe or the real product. So you got to wonder. I need a common prescription down to my last case of beer. Ooh, I feel bad for you, Nicholas. I can still get beer, but I don't drink much of it, so it lasts a long time. Good sign thinking. Dogbreaker says, I wonder if the world economy is predicted to collapse, and by artificially collapsing, it makes the controlled fire. Oh, yeah. Are we like burning the high veld here? Is this a controlled burn there, Dogbreaker? We're trying to replenish the soil. Yeah, there's a lot of conspiracy theories out there right now, but here's the bottom line, folks. I think at the end of the day, what's going to happen, we're going to discover that regardless of where it came from, whether it was accidentally released from a lab where research was being done in Wuhan, which is a very strong possibility, but I'm not making that claim, whether it was that or it naturally occurred from some bat dropping, falling in somebody's mouth, or somebody eating a bat. However, Wuhan coronavirus, COVID-19, got unleashed on the world, the Chinese ignored it, thinking it was the flu. When it became clear after several weeks that this was much more serious and more contagious, at least that was the appearance of it, they shut things down and they went into full denial mode and prevented people from knowing about this in the first weeks of December when it would have made a difference to tell the world. It was escaped from China because they didn't shut Wuhan down until after the thing had spread all over, and 5 million people left Wuhan and went all over China carrying the virus with them, including to Hong Kong, spreading it to Hong Kong and onto cruise ships that were making ports of call there, then taking to Japan, and then people getting on flights and flying to the garment sector of the Italian economy and dumping it there, and on from Italy through the Alps by vehicle and on foot and trains to Austria, Switzerland, Germany, into France and the UK by plane and such. And because Trump shut down travel from China largely, with the Chinese, Americans were being repatriated, so there's still flights, but Chinese couldn't come here. Trump shut down the front door from China, but the back door was left open for the people flying from Guangzhou and Shanghai and Beijing, from China to Africa and into Europe primarily, but from Europe into the United States, the back door from China, but the front door from Europe. It came in wide numbers to the United States as a consequence. And so we're going to find out in the end that the Chinese screwed this up royally, and their conduct did not help. Whether it's malicious or not, it's another story. And that's what we're going to find out in the end. I don't think it's some great conspiracy theory. I think this is incompetence and typical opaque behavior from the Chinese Communist Party. And then when I say slow moving, that's not an unfair comment. When I say slow moving, I'm not saying slow moving, it took them a long time to react. But with this virus and the way it's happened, you would have had to act very rapidly in order to stop it. It's almost impossible to stop it, given how infectious it seems to be. Now, the fatality rate's not nearly what they told us it was, but my point is that we're going to find out that the Chinese screwed the pooch on this, and China will suffer immensely. People talk about China's going to come out of this smell like a rose. China doesn't smell like a rose. They smell like a rotting carcass right now. China's industrial production is way down. They can't get raw materials into the country. Nobody's buying their goods. That's an embellishment. But there's a lot of truth in that story. China's economy is not in great shape, despite what people are trying to tell us about it. Don't buy into that story, folks. There are lots of Chinese factories sitting idle as we sit here right now discussing this topic. Months after the Chinese controlled it. Oh, we have 80,000 cases. Hasn't changed in 2 months. Cock bullshit. Anyway, let's see where else. ICE says, yes, sadly, I know a number of lawyers fighting for their clients that are not BE enough to try and get relief, and tons are getting denied. Yeah, this is shameful, racist legislation, and I don't want to hear about equal opportunity or affirmative action. It's not affirmative action. It is affirmative action in destroying the South African economy. Most minority-owned businesses are comprised overwhelmingly of employees who are non-white. Why would you punish a white-owned business that employs non-whites so they have jobs and incomes and livelihoods for the family, especially if it's a publicly traded company started by white South Africans, and anybody can buy the shares, including black South Africans. It's just brain-dead stupidity. But it's not about economic growth. It's about control, ladies and gentlemen. And if you think about it in that context and understand that the ANC wants to control you and control the means of production because they're die-hard Marxist. Enough of them are anyway, and they seem to have the upper hand. There's no basis for expropriation without compensation. The Constitution, Section 25, already allows for the government to take your property, land, houses, bank accounts. They can take it already. It's legal. They just have to compensate you for it fairly. Similar to eminent domain, a provision that we have here in America that allows the government to take property in the public interest. But they don't want to take it in the public interest. They want to inflame black South Africans and others into believing that land was taken from people. Yes, land was taken from people, and we can address that under redress, and that has been addressed, not adequately, but it has been touched on for the last 26 years, piss poorly. Put me in charge, I'll solve it a lot faster. Anyway, so it's a political tool, and it's a dangerous political tool. The expropriation without compensation clause, if it's put in to the Constitution with an amendment, will be used to threaten political opponents of the government of the day. Today it's the ANC. Tomorrow it might be the ZYX, whatever party is in charge of South Africa in 20 years. If that exists, they will use that law to threaten their political opponents to shut up so they don't speak up. If you open your mouth, what happened to General Flynn will happen to you. General Flynn has nothing except his retirement check. He has a lot of debt for his lawyers, courtesy of malfeasance by the government, fabricating a crime that did not exist. Sound familiar? Look at all these people who are being arrested for. By the way, a couple in Cape Town were charged with two things. One with the toddler, the infant, who was on the beach and the mother picked her up and was breastfeeding her. She's a Slavic immigrant, a legal immigrant to South Africa. But now her residency is threatened because she could be a criminal because she's been charged with this crime. The ones they carted off to the police station where the police couldn't be bothered to wear protective masks and potentially expose them to COVID-19 and their toddler. Yeah, I lost track of where I was going with that. I was making a point. Maybe it'll come back to me later. Anyway, Tainted Heroes. No, I've started watching Tainted Heroes, Lucy. I'm going to watch it. Ronaldo Hose recommended that I play it on my stream and then offer commentary on it. But I want to make sure that I get on a different machine, not one that might break in the middle of it and frustrate people, because I want it to be a full stream. I have no talent at editing my videos right now, so what you get on my streams and what you get on my videos is me live. There's no editing. You don't see little clips of me jumping around, clip from here and this. No, this is me. So if that impresses you, awesome. If it doesn't impress you, that's fine too. But I'm not editing my videos right now. You get what you get. So if I screw up, I screw up. I mistake. I make a mistake. I misspeak. If I don't correct myself, that's what's on the video. I don't go back and edit them right now. I should make them more professional, and I'll get around to that at some point. But right now, I'm just trying to build some subscriber base and interested parties who want to watch this and make sure it's worthwhile effort, because it takes a lot of time and effort to do this, folks. I'm not a monetized channel. I'm not making money off this channel. I might at some point, maybe down the road in one fashion or another, but that's not what it's about. And it's also not my ego. I got better things to do. I got a lot of books to read, I got a lot of research to do, and I can watch other people on YouTube. I'm just trying to spread a message and share it with people who seem to be interested in what I have to say, whether it's about Liberia and rebuilding the armed forces of Liberia, or talking about doing Ebola research in Uganda, or my experiences in Botswana and South Africa, whatever it is, and other people's views. And I like the feedback I'm getting from the chats and people engaging with me. We talk about things that are mutual interest and discuss things that need to be discussed. So that's kind of why I'm doing it. So Tainted Heroes, I would like to do that, but I want to do it professionally, so maybe sometime soon. I think Ronaldo's idea is good. He wanted me to do it because of my worldview, not being a South African, to comment on it. So I started watching it. But yes, I will watch it in full, Lucy, along with the land one that Alfred Forum has done. And then I will look at making a video in which it plays the background. I pause it, make commentary and such, offer my thoughts on it. So let's see. Hell Week, yeah. Oh, Hell Week. No, I'll pass on Hell Week. Dolph de Wolf says, I have about 30 liters of Blitz moonshine. Well, I'll stay away from moonshine. I read that 2 South Africans died from homebrew. Yeah, I'll pass. Nicholas, Lucy, yes, I was part of the 93 tour time. Whoops, I got to pass something here. Oh, my thing is getting away from me. There we go. Arnold deleted messages. Did you say something bad, Arnold? I don't have any moderator here that's taking people's texts off. Lucky I don't drink much. Yeah, I don't drink much at all myself, mostly because I drive, and I won't. If I have one drop, I won't drive. So Nicholas says the latest hypothesis that it was passed on by a pangolin. Yeah, there's a lot of talk about a pangolin, and now people are looking at pangolins and tearing them all apart. It's an endangered species because these idiots eat them and kill them for parts of their body. Ugh, it's crazy. Yeah, so the pangolin is being talked about a lot. Lucy says, Nicholas, that must have been tough. Much respect. But I'm afraid what's coming to South Africa is going to be 10 times worse. Well, I hope not. Perfect time to give up booze and smokes. Yeah, it is for some folks. And if you're not addicted and you can get away from it, you're going to save yourself a lot of money. And the South African Treasury will lose a lot of syntax. Yes, not syntax as in, grammatical syntax, but as syntax as in you're bad. You must pay for being bad. All right, so Dogbreaker says, I agree, Colonel. China is sitting on top of a very dangerous bubble. Their one-child policy has caught up with their aging population, as has their pervasive destruction of their environment, Dogbreaker. They're opening the possibility of expectations of moving up into a middle class and out of poverty, and they can't sustain that unless they continue to break trade rules and violate the World Trade Organization's founding principles and existing rules in place, which is what they've been doing for decades. And they've gotten away with it because the West has been complicit in letting it happen in offshoring production in China. But China's chickens are coming home to roost. And COVID-19, in my view, is going to make that happen far faster than it was. All the experts are talking about China would have a larger economy by the U.S. by 2010, by 2014, by 2015, by 2017, by 2019, by 2020, now 2023, 2025, 2035. That's all nonsense. Even if China actually surpasses the size, now what they're using is a purchasing power parity, which is BS too. There isn't a McDonald's in freaking Central Asia where you go and buy McDonald's. You compare it to McDonald's in New York or to Iowa. Now, purchasing power parity is a tool being used now to say China has a larger economy than the U.S. That's utter nonsense. Most Chinese live in abject poverty. They're poor. They're dirt poor. They don't have access to resources. They can't travel wherever they want and do things. The per capita income in the United States is nearly $60,000 per person. In China, it's a fraction of that, a small fraction of that. Until China has an economy, today their economy should be about $120 trillion a year. Then they would be on par with the United States, which has an economy of about $25 trillion. Think about that. Yeah, we're approaching $25 trillion before COVID-19, $23 trillion, something like that. China would have to have over a $100 trillion economy to be on par with the U.S. They're nowhere near that. So I'm sick of hearing this nonsense about China that people that are just comparing apples and oranges. It doesn't work. Chinese are in bad shape. And the Chinese Communist Party does everything it can to stay in power. It's going to have to work harder. All right, so let's see what else we got here. Whoops. I got to use my PC. The Chinese Communist Party reminds me of the same incompetence we saw in Russia and Chernobyl in '86. Yep, seeing the intelligence coming out so far shows it's very likely incompetence and communism at the lab. Yep, I think that's probably what we're going to find out in the end, Ice. Probably the case. And look at the carnage that's happened from the virus, but the greater carnage caused by hysterical government officials not relying on science. Understandable, they didn't have a lot of science in the beginning, but now we've had months of this. We have the science, yet we're still playing this stupid game. Listen, we're going to lift the lockdown, and there's going to be more cases. They're going to continue to climb. It's going to happen. That's just the nature of this beast. But they're all terrified that if they lift it too soon, that's a real problem. All right, so watch is the most recent coronavirus COVID-19 biological weapon, Phoenix, but be prepared for a surprise. Okay. Doc Becker says, that's why I made a hypothesis, not a theory, but I hear you, mate. Oh, okay. Nicholas has spliced in SARS, HIV, and other proteins possibly. Now that's some real conspiracy stuff. I haven't seen the RNA to know the case, so we'll see. Wuhan helped by West Institute. How do we help Wuhan what? Help Wuhan with the virus? Help Wuhan, right? Okay. I'm not sure where you're going with that. That's conspiracy theory, my new name. But what did happen with the virus was that in the first week of January, President Trump offered to send the CDC and the National Institutes for Health and their virologists and researchers to help the Chinese identify the RNA. We didn't know they'd already cracked it. They didn't tell us till the 9th. But before that, we offered to send a team. They refused. They didn't want us in there because they didn't want us to see what was happening in Wuhan because it was out of control. It was ridiculously bad. And then we see this nonsense, only 4,300 people dead in China. That's utter, this is nonsense. Anyway, yeah, so that is what happened with Wuhan from one standpoint. Let me see. I think Ziegler and Evans was revolutionary thinkers. Love the song, 2525. Australia is the world's most expensive country in which to be a smoker with one pack tearing a hole of almost $20 in Australian smoker's wallet. Ouch. Ouch. That is expensive. I'm glad I don't smoke. ICE says 2020 appropriation bill is live for comment till 29 May, coming for people's pensions, quietly advertised in the papers. Well, that's what I predicted, folks. I said that the $500 billion was going to come out of your pensions. That's why they want the expropriation without compensation amendment to the Constitution so they can steal your savings and your money. So you're going to have to dig a hole and bury Krugerrands in it, or you're going to have nothing when the ANC's finished. And they will do this in the name of past unfairness. The historically disadvantaged, that's the excuse the ANC will take for stealing your hard-earned wealth and resources and giving it away to win votes. And those who vote for the ANC, a party willing to do that to its own citizens, need to look in the mirror. Right, Lucy says, looking forward to that. I presume that what she's talking about is the if I do the commentary on the video. So I want to do it correctly, Lucy. That's what really matters. I don't want to do it kind of, some of my earlier videos here, they're not the best so far as cinematography because I'm not editing them. And I had some issues with my connection, like I'm back in Africa. So anyway, but I want to do it professionally. So, but in the meantime, I will be doing the South Africa Renaissance. That one will be probably tomorrow. I'll record that and then post it so I have some content tomorrow. The black market is flourishing. It's obvious the government knows this. Can you imagine the amount of revenue they are losing by keeping a ban of cigarettes? Absolutely. Hundreds of millions of rands, if not billions of rands, are losing. Dog Burger, yes, definitely accidental. My guess, Australia's neighbor, New Zealand, is almost as pricey. Yeah, cigarettes, $18. Wow. Lucy says, Chris, do you think the virus was released from the Wuhan lab? Honestly, Lucy, I'm not trying to perpetuate any myths, but what I know of the virus, and if for those of you who are curious, if you go on my channel, you'll look under the all that palaver, I think it's under. I have a live stream in which I did a stream about viruses and epidemiology in my collection of books. That's a subject that I've been following for over 30 years as an intelligence analyst, as a military professional, and as an interest of my own. So when it came to Ebola, to Lassa fever, hantavirus, Legionnaire's disease, Rocky Mountain spotted fever, West Nile virus, MERS, SARS, all of these things, I follow them and have some knowledge and experience working with them. I also fought against HIV in Africa and tuberculosis and Ebola research, things like that. So from what I know, as a non-professional virologist, but an amateur virologist, and what I've seen, the information publicly available, it seems highly plausible to me that they were doing research on the virus in the Wuhan Level 4 laboratory and someone was infected. Much like that movie Outbreak, in which Kevin Spacey cuts his glove and gets infected with the Ebola virus or the Ebola-like virus. Very similar to that. Or if you saw the National Geographic special, which was included the woman, the actress that played in ER, she played the nurse, I can't think of her name right now, but that one, there was a similar situation. She plays a U.S. Army colonel who's in the Fort Detrick lab, and she has a cut on her hand, and she gets exposed potentially to Ebola. So a similar situation. I think something like that happened, and someone in the lab covered it up. They didn't want to be locked in the lock zone for 3 weeks, waiting for the virus to propagate or not propagate in their body, since no one knew. So they didn't tell anybody, or they didn't realize. They left the Wuhan lab, went home, and had been exposed to the virus and probably got sick and then spread it amongst everyone else. I don't know anything about these wet markets, whether that's the case or not. I think that's maybe just a coincidence. I don't think people were eating bats or selling bats there. I think that what happened is that they were experimenting on the virus, and it got out of their control through less than adequate safety measures and protocols in place. Given the Chinese record for safety protocols and measures when it comes to a whole host of things, biological issues and nuclear issues, I think that's very plausible. In fact, I think we'll find out in the end, if we ever find the truth out, that that's how it got into the wild. They were experimenting with the virus. And I'm not saying they're not entitled to experiment with the virus. We have smallpox in freezers in Atlanta and in Russia, as a consequence of agreement between the Soviet Union, the World Health Organization, the UN, and the United States, so that we could experiment on the virus and we could develop cures potentially and vaccines for smallpox. So I'm not arguing that Wuhan doesn't have a right to test the virus, to experiment with it. I'm just saying that I think that's ultimately what will happen. Sad but true. Dogbreaker, yeah, pretty bad. And of course, most people so caught up with the virus, they're of course hoping it goes mostly unchallenged. Yeah, well, I'm challenging the orthodoxy on this, not encouraging people to misbehave or break any rules, but we should be asking harder questions of our governmental authorities, whether it's in South Africa, Botswana, Liberia, Uganda, UK, or the US, wherever you're in the world, or China. You should be asking harder questions. On the banners behind the ZA speaker on TV, you can see NDP 2030 icon, which is the NDR plan for Zuma's days. Jeez. Lucy, so it wasn't a vat from the wet market. I don't think it was from wet market, Lucy. A bat. Oh, bat. Yeah, bat. Okay. No, I don't think it was a bat from wet market. It could have been, but I think it's from the lab. But I don't know. And one way to figure this out is by mapping the RNA as it changes and it mutates, and it changes quickly. So they can trace it back and follow the familial line and go back and find the less mutations and find out where it came from. But that would involve the Chinese cooperating with World Health authorities, something they haven't been doing. They claim to, but they're simply not doing it. All right, so Dogbreaker says it's a game of causation and reason. Well, folks, it's 7:37 here on the East Coast in the U.S., and we still got a fair number of folks in on the live stream, but I think I'm going to have to drop off. I don't want to, because I need to get something to eat. I don't want to be here all night. I appreciate it, especially those of you who are in Africa. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope that you found this live stream interesting. Please share my channel with those you know, those you think might have an interest in it. And remember, it's not just South Africa. That's been a big part of the focus tonight, but we did talk about the U.S. and we talked a little bit about Botswana and some other places. But on my channel, I talk about issues across Africa, whether it's African Continental Free Trade Agreement, it's regional organizations, regional economic communities like ECOWAS, SADC, EAC, EGAD, things like that. Talk about peacekeeping, security, economics, energy, alternative energy, all sorts of things from the economic sphere, from agriculture. So in the last 3 live stream shows on Saturday, I've had a discussion about the 25% discount. You're back on that. In the last 3 shows in the live stream, I had the Rebuilding the Armed Forces of Liberia with the program manager from DynCorp who worked for me in Liberia, Jeff Rodriguez. That was the first one a few weeks ago. And then this past week on Saturday, we had Evans Larby. Evans Larby is a small-scale commercial farmer in Ghana. And we talked about the challenges of farming in Ghana, of land tenure, very similar to South Africa. Land title is often communal and it's unclear. It's difficult to get title to land, so you have collateral to borrow money to expand your farming. So we talked about that and the challenges of COVID-19, getting things to market and the impact of that. And then this past Saturday, just a couple of days ago, we talked with Ovigwe Egu, who is a Nigerian security specialist who works in the security sector, talks geopolitics, national security strategy and policy, and security issues. And we talked about a whole host of issues from the herders and pastoralists in northern Nigeria to Boko Haram to oil bunkering in the south, remittances, Chinese medical diplomacy, a whole host of things. And so that's the first 3 in the series of weekly live streams with a guest. I'm looking to have a shepherd, a sheep herder who does urban sheep herding in the Netherlands on my program potentially this coming Saturday. So that's something we do. Then we also do the prepared videos, like I had earlier today, premiered before I did the live stream. I had a video on the informal sector in Africa and also in Botswana in particular, taking a look at Botswana, because there was an op-ed that came out today in Botswana talking about the 10 million Pula relief fund for informal traders, which is a joke. It's a loan program. It should be a grant, as the writer said, and I agree. But anyway, so prepared videos like that, a whole host of topics. So please share this. And for those who don't know and aren't aware, which I think pretty much everybody in the crowd is well aware, I'm a major rugby fan, a huge rugby fan. Sevens I'm a fan of, but rugby 15s, the rugby union is my thing. I'm a South Africa fan, have been since 1984, and I don't apologize for that. I'm a rugby fan. I wasn't a fan of apartheid, but I am a fan of rugby. So I'm a Springbok fan for a long time, and then of course I follow the Eagles. We didn't even have a national team when I became a rugby fan, so I had to pick a country, and I picked South Africa back then, and I've stuck with them. I'm not a fair weather fan, even in the dark days of Alistair Coetzee tenure at the head of the Springboks, when the Springboks were a national embarrassment, winning 1 out of 3 games. Yes. Anyway, so we've got 3 World Cups under the belt now, and we'll go for the 4th one at the next one to set the record to beat the All Blacks. Yep, so let's see. I'm going to drop off here in a second, but don't know about the cadres. It's the holotype of the Corona. You guys are funny. Funny. So Lucy says, enjoy dinner. You are so knowledgeable. Looking forward to the next chat. Good night. Go Boca. Boca. Well, thank you so much, Lucy. I'm glad you joined. I hope you guys can tell your friends and your foes. Like I tell people all the time, if you don't like people, tell them about my channel. Get them to watch it. maybe it'll set them off and irritate them, right? Anyway, so let's see. So that's the wrong one. That's my podcast music that I all messed up there. So here it is. All right, here we go. There we go. There's my fade out music. All right, folks, thanks a lot for tuning in. This has been an Indaba Africa production, but really just a live stream, The Stray Voltage. I'm Chris White. I've been your host, and I've been your partner in this journey tonight. We've done it for over 3 hours. Thank you so much for joining me. If you're not a subscriber and you have even the remotest of interest in seeing the content and being part of the conversation, please push that subscription button right there. Be sure to toggle the little notification switch so you get notified of my live streams and my videos. And by the way, time for a little bit of e-begging. I haven't been doing that. Please smash that like button down there. If you've been with me for a long time tonight, you've definitely either liked or found it provocative. So please smash the like button, because that drives viewership. The more likes you get as a percentage of views of the video, the more likely it is for YouTube to put your impression on someone's channel. So please, if you have comments in the video, give me comments. If they're positive, negative, I welcome them all. If they're abusive, I'll ignore them. But if they're worth discourse, I'll answer them if I can, or I'll comment on them, but I do read them all. And please smash that like button. Okay, folks, thanks a lot. La Cubona, thank you so much. Nant Alma. Good night to everybody in South Africa and here in the U.S. Enjoy your television even this evening, or reading, whatever you're up to. Look forward to seeing you all in the next live stream, Stray Voltage. Thanks a lot, folks. Take care of yourselves, and God bless. We're all going to get through this Wuhan coronavirus one way or another. Take care, folks.